What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome into Jets Today, episode 45. I'm here with James, and we will be joined later by Will. And yes, we're all wondering the same thing you are. Will we be able to hear Will this week? It's still up in the air as far as I can tell. James, how you doing, man?
Good. I'm doing good. It's a slow news week, so I have a lot of notes here. Hopefully we can come together with a full episode. There's just not that much going on.
Yes, and I only got like 8 to 9 mailbags this week, so lots of people left,
Good.
different questions and comments. So it'll be really interesting to go through those with you guys. We have to start the show with a voicemail, and it is from Grant Rude, and it's pretty funny. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it, and James, give me the nod if you can hear it. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to hear it though.
Hey guys, it's Grant from Saskatoon calling. I don't have a question for you this week, but just wanted to put out some positive vibes. Thoughts and prayers out to Jamal Adams after seeing the Russell Wilson trade to the Denver Broncos. He's probably sitting in a dark room somewhere, so positive vibes out to him, and hopefully he can overcome this dark time in his life. So maybe light a candle for him and keep him in your thoughts, because he's now on probably one of the worst situations he could possibly be in on a rebuilding team without a star quarterback. All right, thanks guys.
Thank you, Grant, for the voicemail. Really appreciate it. That still is an option, guys. The phone number is in the description of every video on the channel, 347-921-1468. Feel free to leave me a voicemail 24/7, and we'll put it on the live stream. Any thoughts and comments on the Seattle Seahawks big trade? I know it's not New York Jets news, but it is interesting to talk about.
Yeah, no, it felt like it came out of left field too. It didn't seem like we were expecting it. The Rodgers news dropped, and then all of a sudden it was Russell Wilson is a Denver Bronco. So, they decided to go that direction. But I do think it ultimately impacts us. I think it impacts us for a multitude of reasons, whether that's who's available on the Seahawks, but also they now have the ninth pick. Are they looking for a quarterback? Do they like someone? Is now that trade out of 4 a possibility? So all that stuff I'm sure we'll get into. But my thoughts on Jamal Adams. Listen, the grass ain't always greener on the other side. Sometimes you got to stick things out, and it gets better. And for him, he put himself in a situation where he, in my opinion, acted like a child to get out of New York, and wound up, or found himself in what might be a very similar situation over in Seattle. So listen, he acted the way he did, and that's fine. But sometimes a little bit of karma, I think, came back his way.
It seems to be that way, right? Like, he wanted to play for a championship caliber team. He wanted to play for,
Mhm.
a functional franchise, which the Seahawks, have been, to be fair to them. But it does not look good for them, as far as like the initial, after the trade happened. They still have good football players, but they're in a really tough division. So things could be pretty bad for them. Vern with a good comment, and you're not the only one that said this, actually. He got the bag, he doesn't care. You might be right, but the only thing I will say is I think he does want to win. Like, I think
Mhm.
Jamal Adams actually cares about winning. Of course, the money is like probably one of the top things, if not the top thing for him and a lot of these guys, but I still think he's very competitive in nature. And
Mhm.
I think that's really ultimately what it comes down to. Uh, let's see. It's all fun and games till Seattle trades for Watson, and that's another thing I'd heard, people talking about. Maybe they're going to make a move for Watson. I still don't see how we're going to have any Watson news without knowing what's really going on. So, could they? Of course they could, potentially later down the line, but I still think the Eagles have to be the favorite, for that kind of a trade. They just have way too much draft capital this year.
Yeah.
Let's see. Straight 100 Jets. He says the Hawks are in the middle of a fire sale. I think DK is next. JD, get it done now. We will talk about Metcalf tonight for sure. There's no clear, like, he's definitely available, kind of like, I don't know. There's nothing out there that says he's
No,
for
right.
sure available. But if he were available, I think a lot of us will agree that that would be something to look into for sure. All right. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into the very first mailbag. And the first mailbag comes from, let's see, Kev Chatta. And he says, is Trayvon Walker from Georgia, is he Quentin Coples? Is he Golston 2.0? Is he a combine-only warrior? Is he worth to be picked over Jermaine Johnson? I think it's a great question, and I'll defer to you to start, but I'll have an answer, of course. So what are your thoughts on Trayvon Walker?
Well, he's definitely a combine warrior from what we saw over the weekend. But ultimately, I wouldn't take him over Jermaine Johnson. I don't want to call him Quentin Coples and definitely don't want to call him Vernon Golston. That's pretty cruel. But ultimately, the combine isn't everything. It's a good portion, in a sense, to confirm some things. But ultimately, I think the tools are on the side and the tape is on the side of Jermaine Johnson, in terms of a variety of pass rush moves. The run game is where Trayvon Walker excels, but I do think Jermaine Johnson's up there with the best run defenders in the entire class. So I don't think there's a leg up in that regard. And Jermaine Johnson is in his own right a heck of an athlete. He had a 1.55 10-yard split in the 40-yard dash, which is rare territory for a guy that is his size. And so ultimately, I would not jump the gun and take him over Jermaine Johnson, but I do think Trayvon Walker will be a player in the NFL.
All righty, there you go. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna sit here and say that he is only a workout warrior. And I think that's the question: is he just a guy that's a stud, working out? Prior to the combine, people that really know what they're doing and who really study the draft, they were calling him to be a top 10 guy prior to the combine. So I don't want to discredit him just because of the workout. If anything, it probably juices his value up a little bit more. And to talk about that 10-yard split, I think a lot of people get caught up in the numbers. And I think that's one of those numbers that actually does transfer, because what you're talking about there is initial burst and explosion. And as a pass rusher, those first, I mean, not 10 yards, but first, couple of steps are huge. And that's what
Right.
that first 10 yards time really shows, is can you get going quickly? Those first couple of steps, how fast can you get to top gear? And so Trayvon Walker running a 1.55 in the 10-yard split, and Kayvon Thibodeau running a 1.59 in that 10-yard split. It just shows really, really impressive explosion. So I'm going to go ahead and say, without really being a film junkie, I think that Trayvon Walker is the real deal. And the question is where does he go? I still like Jermaine Johnson a little bit more because of I feel like he's got the hand stuff really good. The pass rush moves a little bit more, developed. But I think if you're trying to swing big, I think Trayvon Walker is that guy in this draft. Jared Helmuth, excuse me, he says Trayvon Walker isn't Golston. He's just not a pure pass rusher. He's got a lot of things. He has a ton of talent and instincts, just doesn't have a lot of experience or tools as a pure edge guy. And that was what I think I read too, right? Like he drops back did drop back in coverage a lot for Georgia, right?
Yeah, and he also they played him inside as well. He wasn't just a over the over the tackle type of player. He was he was moved inside as well.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next mailbag. We do have your question here on the screen, Mitch, so I will answer it after the next mailbag is done. If you want these mailbags, you guys got to send these in. If you've got questions, This is how you get your questions answered right away. Let's go to this one. This is a pretty cool question. It's from Aaron, and he says, should the Jets have some faith in the development of Quincy Williams? It's a cool question because it's not necessarily just draft. What are your thoughts on whether or not the Jets should kind of have some faith and maybe some patience in his development and, seeing it through with him, because he's not like a fluky guy. He was drafted in the 3rd round just a couple of years ago, so he does have the talent. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so would that imply that we essentially don't address the linebacker spot? Are when we say faith, is it we're just going to go with him as the starter next to Quincy Williams, you think?
For the sake of
I'm sorry, CJ Mosley.
Yeah. For the sake of the question, let's just say in a vacuum. Like, let's not say, like, is he a starter? Is he a backup? Just, do you have any level of faith in his ability to develop?
Yeah, no, I do, because I think he possesses certain things that you need in the linebacker, right? It's not perfect everywhere. Sometimes the pass coverage isn't great, which it's starting to get to that point in the league where linebackers got to cover these bigger tight ends, et cetera. But for a guy that's as explosive and physical as him, you want those traits into maybe someone who can be, an ultimate starter for you that can develop more, I guess, broaden their horizons in terms of what they could do on the football field. So I really like the burst and the explosion, and then the physical aspect. He's, a good tackler there, but obviously instinct wise, I think that's where the development also comes in terms of, his read and recognition. So tools, you bet on the development and hope you can get, some more out of him as time goes on. I can't hear you. Now I can hear you.
Okay. All right. We're at audio issues the last two shows. No worries. I think it's back up now. Anyway, yeah, I like Quincy Williams. I do think that there is some talent there. And I guess the question is can he become more of an instinctual guy? And I think that there were times where we saw him kind of over pursue as well. So it will be interesting to see how it goes in regards to, from last year to this coming year. How does he play? Even if it's in a limited role, I want to see him perform and I want to see him develop. It's not Will all over again, Grant Rude. Peter, it's good to see you, my man. Thanks for tuning in. Let's go ahead and let's talk about Mitch's question. We're going to obviously talk about the draft tonight. What's your pulse right now? The combine's over. Who do you want it for? I think the answer is still pretty clear, I think.
Yeah, I think the answer is still, if Kayvon Thibodeau is there at 4, he's the pick. Don't get caught up in, whatever everyone is saying, whatever the buzz was. It still felt like people didn't like what he was talking, how he was speaking. He was a me guy. The reports, we don't know, but it still felt like, and I thought he sounded really good, in terms of, you want that guy who's that confident, to a certain extent. But I think if Kayvon Thibodeau's there at 4, he's the no-brainer pick at that point.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's keep going here, and let's go to the next mailbag. Thank you, Mitch, for sending that question in to us. This is a pretty cool one here from Jared, who has been dropping mailbags every week. Thank you, Jared, for doing that. Really appreciate it. He says, say the Jets fix the O-line and pick up a veteran wide receiver in free agency. What's the drop-off at talent between Tier 1 edge and Tier 2 edge versus the drop-off at Tier 1 cornerback and Tier 2 cornerback? Would Sauce Gardner make more sense at 4 than taking an edge maybe at 10? Walker, Karlaftis, Jermaine Johnson. I actually think this is a pretty interesting question, and I want to hear what you have to say. You're a big Gardner supporter. would you consider taking Gardner and then flipping it and taking the edge at 10?
Whew, yeah. So I'm passing on Kayvon Thibodeau is what you're saying.
Well, let's all right. So let's say in this scenario that Kayvon's gone, and let's
Oh,
also
okay. Gotcha.
and just for the example, let's say Hutchinson's gone,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's saying the draw. Oh, I guess I hear what you're saying now because the question does say tier 1 edge. Okay, now so yes, you would have to consider passing on Kayvon. That
Okay.
is true.
So I I don't see a world where you pass on Kayvon. So I think the drop off depends on one player. And I'm thinking about this really kind of off the top of my head a little bit, but one player is Trent McDuffie from Washington. He's the cornerback for Washington that a lot of people are really high on. And so if you're looking for the corner at 10, do you go, you don't pass on Kayvon, you get him at 4. And then do you really like Trent McDuffie? I don't know if he's a top 10 overall player, because I do think there maybe is a thought of Derek Stingley Jr. may be there at 10. I don't know what team's temperature is on him, but I think it's possible given his injury not working out, we may not see him. He may be there at 10. So if Kayvon is gone, though, I would go for Sauce Gardner at 4 and then see what I got at edge at 10, because it is possible that Jermaine Johnson is there at 10.
Yeah, there's a number of guys that could be there. I mean, there's nothing to say that Trayvon Walker is a lock to be inside the top 10.
Right.
He may fall to 10. So that could be intriguing, man, to have your, cornerback 1 spot and an edge guy that you feel really good about. I think there's a lot of intrigue with that.
Yep.
What's going on, Rob? Thanks for tuning in, man. We're just getting started here. We're going to go ahead and go to our next mailbag. And it's a similar kind of thing here. So Dylan, thank you for submitting this. He says, if Kayvon and Hutchinson are gone, would you take JJ at 4? So now we're getting a little bit more specific. Those 2 guys are gone. Would you go JJ at 4, or who else would you take at 4?
So I continuously go back and forth with Jermaine Johnson at 4. I'm trying to determine if it's a little too rich. I know there's people that feel like it's not at all, and then I feel like there are people that may not want him in the top 10 at all. I think what it comes down to is, what does that edge look like when we leave the free agent market, right? When we leave the free agent market, are we so desperate for an edge that we're now picking at 4 for possible need because they value that edge position so much and it should be valued? Someone's got to get after the quarterback. Do they see Jermaine Johnson as that potential future edge, and the drop off they don't feel like? Because I do think tier 1 is Kayvon and Aiden, and then there's a bit of a, not a long drop off, but a bit of a drop off until you get to Jermaine, in my opinion, there, and Trayvon Walker in that regard. But I would say it depends on what we come out of free agency with. And if it becomes an absolute need at 4, I think I can get on board with it.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say right now, I think if Mr. Hutchinson and Thibodeau are gone, I'm actually starting to lean Gardner. I'm leaning Gardner at 4, and I'm actually leaning double defense right now. And that's going to make people upset, and I get it.
No.
I think you can still go get really good offensive players at the top of the second round. We've got 35 and 38, and if you want to trade back from 10, I don't know if I would do that personally. If you're going to take double defense, I would stick and pick there, but I'd feel real good about Gardner and an edge at 10. If it's Jermaine Johnson, I think that's a home run type of first round draft. So I feel like that's a real option. Double defense to me is super underrated. Would you really do that? Would you double down on edge? I don't know if I could do that. I'm super pro edge right now, and I think everybody knows that, but I don't think I could do it. That would be
No,
ridiculous,
no.
though. Wouldn't that be insane to have Walker, Lawson, and KT? I think that would be maybe too much, but too much pass rush seems pretty good too, though. Zion Johnson at 10. Can't do it at 10. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but I don't think I would take him at 10. I would trade back, though, from 10 and consider taking him, but I don't think we're in a position to land Zion in this draft, unfortunately. I don't think he's going to make it to 35.
No, he's not.
So I think that ship has probably sailed. All right, cool. We got more mailbags, so we're going to... Oh, cool. No worries. He said trade back. Yeah. No, I would definitely consider it. Thank you for clarifying. All right, let's keep it moving and grooving. This is another question here. NY Jets Flight Deck Podcast. He says, should the Jets invest money on a top linebacker, such as Devondre Campbell, or should we address this need in the draft? You could also throw Bobby Wagner in the mix now because he is available. What are your thoughts? I have a clear answer. What would you do?
Well, we're going to get into our linebacker rankings. And I came away pretty impressed with what I was finding about some of these guys, the versatility aspect. So the one piece I would add, a Devondre Campbell, that's actually a really interesting signing there if that is made. He was an all-pro last year. And he also was in the Atlanta Falcons system with Jeff Ulbrich there. So there's familiarity there. I'm kind of wondering what the linebackers are going to cost in free agency. That's a piece there too, because we saw last year there weren't that many big deals thrown out to linebackers. A lot of one year deals there, and so can you get a Devondre Campbell and you don't spend a ton of money on the position? But I'm gonna lean toward the draft there because I think. And I think DJ mentioned it to us in his when we had him on for his episode that they're not really seeing the linebacker spot as something that they need to really address with a big premium asset. So if that's the case, I do think they could get a really good linebacker later on in this draft.
Yep. And I still think it's one of those positions we double dip on. I think we will sign a veteran free agent, and I think we will also get a player in the draft. I think that's very, very important. We got a super chat here from A Mitch. Thank you very much, A Mitch. Really means a lot. Lots of support from you, my man, over the the months that we've been doing this. So really appreciate it. He says I would take Icky, not IK and Pale. He says I would take Ick at 4, try to trade back from 10, take JJ, and use that extra draft capital to double up on tight end. Thoughts? So it would be Icky at 4, trade back from 10 to try and get JJ. If not JJ, I assume he wants another edge, and then use the extra draft capital, double up on tight end.
So if I don't know if we would get Jermaine Johnson outside the top 10, that would be probably I do think he's going to wind up in the top 10. It's going to end with us or it's going to end with somebody else and potentially even Seattle now if they want to find that edge rusher at 9, he's a possibility there. So the only risk there is you're potentially going to miss out on JJ if you trade back from 10. I mean, I'm all in on Icky at 4. If that's the pick, I can definitely get on board with that. I know how your thoughts, John, on the offensive line altogether, and I'm starting to move towards where you're thinking in that regard. But it would be a pick I could get behind. It's just when we trade back, it all becomes a matter of, listen, it's not going to be every year that, we sit and wait and Elijah Moore just kind of falls into our lap. There's going to be times where we don't get what we want. And I think that would be the worry with this scenario.
It's a great question. And if we don't address offensive line in free agency, absolutely, I will support that
Yeah.
decision. If we opt to not sign a James Daniels, a Laken Tomlinson, if we don't get a
Mhm.
quality starting offensive lineman, I am more than willing to do that at the top of the draft. So I think drafting him at 4 in that scenario is perfectly fine. I have really no problem with trading back from 10. I think it's one of the better scenarios that we could have on draft day if that presents itself. And the idea of double drafting tight ends is great. We certainly miss out on Schultz. We miss out on Njoku. So the case could be made that the smart money this offseason regarding the tight ends would be to double dip. And it doesn't have to be like 2 very early picks. It could be a mid, we could do a second rounder or a third rounder in the for the first tight end. And then you could wait. You could wait till the 5th round to get another one because it's that deep. There are guys that are going to be available in that range. Great question, A. Mitch. And again, thank you very much for the super chat. Let's go ahead and let's get back to our mailbag. And by the way, I will answer the question is regarding the linebacker money. No, don't invest a ton of money in a top linebacker. I would prefer to get somebody in that $5 to $6 to $7 million range. I would not spend more than that, though. I think that's a fair amount of money to be investing in the linebacker spot. And I think we can get, like you had said, I think that, linebackers typically, especially, those 4-3 type of linebackers where you're not really counting on them to be pass rushers, you can get pretty good deals on those guys. All right, let's keep it moving. This is from Lou. My apologies, Lou. And he says, if by some chance Thibodeau does not fall to 4, I would much prefer Ekwonu or Neal and kick them to right guard. And if everyone stays healthy, then you go safety or reach for a cornerback or wide receiver at that spot. If you do that, your line is fixed for this year and you put Wilson in the best chance to succeed. This isn't really a question. It's more or less a take from him. So thank you for submitting it. I don't mind just reading your takes, guys. And look who we have here. We're gonna bring him in. He's in the green room right now, but we got the man, the myth, the legend himself. It is Will Parkinson from Turn On the Jets. I'm gonna go ahead and add him here. Will, what's up,
guys?
man?
How are you?
We're
What's
good.
going on, Will?
And we can hear you.
I know this is shocking after last week.
Well, oddly enough, I'm having some audio myself where I typically use my headphones to be able to hear so that it's not coming through my computer, but now it's doing that, and so maybe it's me, man. Maybe it isn't you.
No.
How are you doing this night? How are you doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. It's exciting time, so I definitely can't complain too much. It's a fun time to be a Jets fan right now.
Absolutely. Grant Root says, I can't hear Will. JK. Not funny.
Last week was tough. The hotel rooms in Indianapolis, I guess, aren't the best for Wi-Fi. So I had trouble with my own show, let alone hopping on other shows.
Awesome. No problem. So again, like last week, while we were trying to sort through the technology, you guys can check out his podcast. It is in the description of this stream tonight. So I highly recommend that. Very highly regarded podcast. And if you haven't checked it out, please consider doing that. We were in the middle of our mailbag and we just are going to move to the next one. And you should be able to see that on your screen. It says, despite Kyle Hamilton running a 4.59 40 time, would you consider him still a possibility for the Jets at 10? Saleh said he likes his unicorn players who they can line up anywhere on defense. And he also throws in there, I'm hearing Sauce Gardner can be the pick at 4 to potentially help us secure a cornerback 1. Let's stick to the first part of his question, and we're going to go to Will first. Hamilton at 10. I feel like, yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell right now, only based on what they're going to do in free agency, if they address 2 safeties or they only get 1. And this is a very deep safety class, especially the top around 2. There's like 5 or 6 guys I really like. I was doing I put out my top 5 positional rankings today, and there's 4 guys that could all go between like 25 and 40. So in a good way, there's a lot of depth there. That said, I think if Hamilton's there at 10, it's got to be a heavy consideration. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I think you feel much better about taking a game-changing type safety at 10 than you do at 4. To kind of answer that in two parts, Sauce is not going to be there at 10. I would be shocked. The one box he needed to check in Indy was just to see what his see what his track speed was like a little bit, having been at Cincinnati. Obviously, they play a lot of competitive games, but it's not the same as maybe someone coming from an LSU like a Derek Stingley, and he ran the 4.4. So I would say if he's not there at 4, he will likely get picked by the Giants at either 5 or 7. So whatever the Jets do, there's a good chance the Giants do the exact same thing. Like there's two options. If the Jets are between KT and Icky, for example, whoever they don't take, the Giants will likely just take the other one. Same thing at, whoever the Giants don't take at 7, likely he gets to the Jets at 10. So I would take Hamilton at 10, but only if like other things were filled first. If like a Sauce Gardner was on the board versus Hamilton, I would take the corner. And then Sauce at 4, I think I would do it, but it would have to be where like Aquanu and KT are gone and Hutch is gone, and you've already addressed offensive line.
Fair enough. James, would you consider him a 10?
Yeah. And to kind of, Will kind of hit it on the head there. And just to go to the 40 time, I'll kind of touch on that piece there. I mean, the 4.59, I don't think it's anything to be crazy worried about. He's 6'4", 225 pounds. He's a big guy, and ultimately, sure, you want maybe the 40 time to confirm things here and there, maybe that you see on tape. But, the tape in the on-field play for Kyle Hamilton didn't just disappear when he ran the 4.59 40. So if he's there at 10 and certain other things are addressed or have been addressed, I think he is a talent that it would be hard to pass up at that point in time, especially given the need. I mean, in my opinion anyway, we need 2 safeties. So you got to address them. You got to address it somehow.
Yeah, I think that I would not do it at 4. I will rule that one out confidently. I think there's a lot of people that say you should consider him at 4, and I think it's fine. I don't think that you're idiots for thinking that. If you do think that, anybody who's out there saying that, but 10 is one where you have to kind of sit there and go, like at that point in the draft, it might be worth it. And kind of like what you were saying, Will, if other players are available at other positions, I think that's where you have to consider, passing. And that's where it's going to be really interesting to see. And we're days away now. And I think that's I get always excited at this time of year because it does feel like Christmas. Like this is the best time of year, as far as the off season goes. Like we're really excited to see how these teams attack free agency. And that alone is going to give us a lot of answers on how they approach these early picks. Like you said, with the, if they go out there and they sign a couple of veterans and we expect those guys to start, they may not be interested in taking any safeties early.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion, like this is one of those draft classes specifically, like if you want an edge guy, I think you got to take him in the top 10 to get the guy you really want. I like some of the round 2 edges, like a Boye Mafe or Drake Jackson, but they're just not sure things. Safety is kind of the direct opposite. It's the one guy at the top, but there's not that big of a drop off to like a Lewis Seen or a Daxton Hill of guys of that nature. So if you can go get yourself a Quantre Diggs, who now might be on his way out of Seattle, although I can tell you that they were pretty heavily in negotiations last week. Now, things have changed a bit in Seattle, obviously. So we'll see there, but there's definitely a lot of interest in terms of that top of the end safety market. Marcus Williams is a great name. I'm hesitant Joe Douglas is going to break the bank and pay a safety $15+ million a year. He could, and I would be happy with it, but it's just, we'll see. I'm not I haven't heard as much buzz on Marcus Williams transparently in Indy as like I thought I was going to. I think it was more around some other guys at the safety position.
Yeah, I don't see that one either. I know James is really crossing his fingers. He really wants Williams bad. Go ahead, talk about him.
Yeah, and I mean Marcus Williams is one thing, but and I don't know how you guys feel, but I saw like the updated cap space numbers. It feels like the numbers are really low all around. Like the Jets have the top 5 in cap space, but it was like 48 million. So if you do go ahead and get that one big ticket free agent for 15 million, And right, that's before other cuts. What do they do with, Connor McGovern, Sheldon Rankins, et cetera, to create more, Greg Van Roten, et cetera. But ultimately, it doesn't, even though we're at the top, it doesn't feel like the resources in free agency are as abundant as maybe I was expecting. But so yeah, it's a good point. I hope we come away with Marcus Williams, but financially, it may just not be something that they or Joe Douglas is willing to do.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Steven,
by the way, a lot of the numbers are smaller because although the cap went up, everyone pushed a ton of money from last year into this year. So
Okay.
like that's why you'll see guys like trying to think of a good example here, like a Taysom Hill, right, or a Drew Brees or someone like that, where like they retired, or Brady this year, like all their money is just sitting on the cap still. So there's a lot of different guys like that, or CJ Mosley, where last year was supposed to be his biggest contract hit, and now it's going to be this year. It's just because he opted out. So it was like those are the types of things. I saw someone say Daxton Hill is Ashton Davis. He is not Ashton Davis.
I was going to say, dude, I saw that too. No, Vern. Bad
very
Vern.
Different, very different players. Very different.
Yeah. We'll talk. We talked a little bit about Daxton Hill last week. He's one of my favorite safeties, probably in the whole class. Beside Mr. Hamilton, he is probably my favorite. Versatility is ridiculous through the roof. First, athleticism. We don't want to get sidetracked, but we'll keep moving here. We've got one. I hear you, bro. It's all right. I trust you. You do. He does know what he's talking about. He was talking about Jelani Woods prior to the combine. He was saying keep an eye on this guy. So you're not crazy. Don't worry, Vern. All right, we got one more mailbag here. This will be the last one, and this is a good one. We've got Mr. Will Parkinson here. He's got some insider, perspective here. And he says, this is from Green Go. He says, one sleeper free agent signing and one sleeper pick in the draft. Somebody that you expect will sign, somebody you expect will draft that maybe others aren't expecting. We'll go to James first. James.
All right. So I put my sleeper free agency signing, and it may not be a sleeper anymore. I kind of saw his name floating around Twitter last night, but DJ Jones, defensive tackle for the 49ers, 4 years under Robert Saleh. There is a question mark with this interior defensive line. Foley is a free agent. He had some issues in the run game this year with the 4-3 scheme that they were running. DJ Jones is, familiarity with it, and he did provide a lot of run stops. I think he actually potentially led the interior defensive line in the NFL in run stops last year. May not provide as much in the pass, in the pass rush game, but it is there. It may not be as, dominant as, maybe we would prefer, but not everyone could do everything all at once. So I put DJ Jones as my free agency sleeper. My draft pick sleeper is if we don't get a chance to address the cornerback spot early. I'm a big Sauce Gardner fan, and I think everyone's kind of coming along there. But Alontae Taylor out of Tennessee, I thought he was an aggressive player on tape. He had a lot of ball skills as well. And then he came through the combine with a 4.36, so that kind of confirmed the game speed there. And always plays at 100 miles an hour. That's kind of embodies a little bit of that all gas, no brake that they're looking for. He's a leader. I actually put it on here. He was the vice chair of the SEC Football Leadership Council. So he's got some off-field character that we would we would want to bring in the locker room. So Alontae Taylor for me, that sleeper, maybe that fourth round, later in the fifth round, potentially for this secondary room.
Okay, great. Will, what do you think?
So I guess from a free agency perspective, two names I brought up on Badlands last night. One, Austin Corbett, the guard for the Rams. Familiar with the scheme. He's 26 years old. Obviously, like I mentioned, pretty decent, gap run scheme, run blocker. He's in the top half of the league in pass block rate, ranked 22nd out of 82 guards. Durable guy, only 26 years old. The Rams obviously are always going to have cap problems. So we'll see if they're able to bring him back. He'd be an interesting name, a guy going on in his second contract. I think those are the names to look for from a free agent perspective. Another one that I'm not sure is going to really excite people, but I wouldn't be shocked if a Leighton Vander Esch, who's obviously going to walk from Dallas. I know he's a little beat up, but there's a guy like in a similar sense, former first round pick, was very good as a rookie, very good in year 2, and then has been banged up. Still 25 years old, coming from that similar scheme, the Dan Quinn, Robert Saleh, Gus Bradley scheme. You never know. It could be a nice, sideline to sideline guy to, compete, in day one of training camp with some of the young guys they brought in last year. And, we'll see there. I would say from the draft perspective, a guy I had on my podcast who's not necessarily, I don't know if a third round or second round, like an end of, a round 3, early day 3 guy is going to be a sleeper, but Cole Strange out of Tennessee, Chattanooga. If the Jets do not address, guard early in free agency or early in the draft, he's a guy who I think could be a solid starter in the NFL at both guard and center. Ended up testing way better than I think even he thought he was going to, and I've talked with him a bunch. And 31 reps on bench. His broad jump was fantastic. He ran a good times in both shuttles, and 40. He's got really good tape. He's just a physical, like, football guy. And I think played in his own scheme in college, played tackle, guard, and center, and was very good at the Senior Bowl. Connor Hughes loves him because he wears 69 and has a T-bar face mask. But in all seriousness, he's a guy that fits in. I know the Jets have spoken to him a good amount, and mentioned to him, we'd love to have you if you're still available, and when we're picking. So he's a name to watch. Again, if the Jets go out and sign an Austin Corbett, or they go out and sign James Daniels or Lincoln Tomlinson, maybe not. Maybe he might get, some people have him going round 2 now. He was a guy that I thought the Jets could find, early in round 4, and all of a sudden his combine is shot up pretty big. So those are names to watch. I see people talking about Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is like super interesting because his tape's good, and then he goes to the Senior Bowl, and I'm like, wow, I can't wait to watch Alec Pierce. Like, I didn't realize how big he was. He was atrocious all week. I don't think he had one catch I remember the entire time. And I'm like, I was super disappointed. I was talking with some people I was sitting with, and I'm like, wow, I'm shocked. Like, I really thought he was going to have a nice week, and he didn't. And then he comes into the combine. It was like one of the best combines you could possibly have. Comes in ideal size, first out of the gym, broad jump, great, runs in the 4.3s. Like, if you can get, he's a guy that maybe if you don't address receiver early, you kind of look at it in round 3 and, take a shot on just pure athleticism, and he's got good tape. But he's a confusing player, man. He's very, very confusing, because one day you love him, the next day you're like, I can't draft this guy.
Very good. All good stuff from you guys. Before I share my 2 guys, if you don't mind, go ahead and hit that like button, guys. We've got the most in Jets Today history on this stream, so I'd really appreciate the support if you guys go ahead and hit it up for us. Tyler Conklin is the tight end that I am now pivoting to. I think that he is a decent fit. He will be a short-term fix. He could potentially be on the team for at least 2 years, 3 years, something like that. He's only 27 years old. So I feel good about bringing him in as a free agent. And I think that, again, we cannot do a whole lot wrong in free agency to improve that room. It's just not good enough. And I think bringing him in does add a guy with at least some, respectability in the receiving game. So I think that's super important to do. And then the last guy I was going to mention, the draft player, Rachaad White. They ran him a lot on the Jets side at the Senior Bowl. They ran him, I think it was like 10 plus times. They gave him the ball a lot, and I don't think that's a mistake. I think they did that on purpose. They're trying to assess him, and maybe it's to remove him off the draft board, but I thought he ran really good in the game, and I think that, he'd be a pretty good compliment. Ran good at the combine, and he's pretty patient, has good vision. So I would say Rachaad White is a sleeper pick for me. All right, we got one more super chat here, and then we'll move on to our first segment of the show, not a mailbag. And it's from Jared, and he is talking to you, Will, it looks like, specifically. And he says, Will, you said that people are still high on Jameson Williams, even with the ACL. Is there a scenario where you see the Jets taking him, or nah?
So some of the buzz at the combine was Jameson Williams is still going to be the first receiver taken. Yeah. So, and there's not going to pay that ACL tax. So he came in. I mean, he is not a big guy. I will tell you. I mean, he's like maybe 6'1". He is all of 175 pounds, 180 pounds. Mm-hmm. He's obviously the most unique receiver at the top of the draft, right? Of those, like, in my thing, I have him as wide receiver 3 behind Garrett Wilson and Drake London. A lot of people have him. Some people have him higher. Some people have him a little bit lower. I like Jameson Williams. I don't know that I could take him at 10. That said, a scenario I brought up yesterday on a few different shows was that if the Jets start to see someone like him slipping maybe to 16, 17, 18 and starting to slip, and they have an unaddressed receiver, packaging 35 and some picks, instead of trading for that veteran Stephon Diggs, quote unquote, player that everyone's kind of talking about, maybe you go up and get a third first round pick. And you go edge corner and then you go and get a receiver that way as opposed to waiting for 35.
Yep.
So that maybe is more likely than him taking him at 10, but there's definitely some buzz of Jameson Williams. I will tell you that. He was an interesting guy. He's had a schedule in rehab. The ACL is not the same way it used to be looked at. It's, even the Achilles, right? Carl Lawson tears his Achilles. As Jets fans, everyone remembers Vinny was like 36, 37 and tore his Achilles. And even as a quarterback, it looked like he was never the same, let alone, guys in an explosive position. But people still expect Lawson to come back fully healthy. So I would say from a Jameson Williams perspective, there's a lot of buzz around him. I would have loved to see what he would have ran the 40. He would have been a low 4.3s guy. And I think it would have been a fun show at the combine. So we'll see what happens with him. But at the end of the day, he's a guy that he will be a first round player. He is not getting to 35 or 38 like some people kind of had hoped, right when he tore the ACL.
James and I were talking about it last week. We were like, man, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, James. I don't remember which one, but we were like, what the scenario where if we traded up with, using those early seconds and getting a third first and taking him, that is a hell of a draft day scenario. And man, I'm all about it, man. Even with that ACL, you said he's not going to pay the ACL tax. I think that that's completely in bounds to go and, trade up if we're going to do something like that. I think it's a great idea. We don't need to talk about it anymore because we did talk about it a lot, but I think it should definitely be in play. All right, cool. This is awesome. Let's go to the very first topic of the night. So free agency is, like I said, it's days away now. And some players came off the board in the tagged, and some stayed. Some are still available. I'm going to very quickly read through the tagged players. Chris Godwin, and if I miss any, if you guys know of, just let me know. Chris Godwin, Cam Robinson, the left tackle for the Jags, Devontae Adams, tight end Dalton Schultz, tackle Orlando Brown for the Chiefs, Jesse Bates for the Bengals, the safety, Gesicki, and Njoku tight ends. And then Mike Williams was re-signed. Harold Landry was re-signed last night, the edge. And then the only big one that I saw that wasn't tagged was J.C. Jackson. So I guess the question here is, and that should not say suspended players. That should say re-signed players. So I'll fix that. What are your guys' thoughts on we'll focus in on maybe Dalton Schultz missing out on that opportunity, David Njoku, and maybe Chris Godwin, although I think a lot of people thought he was going to get tagged. Will, you can go first. Any concern, I guess, that they're gone? I was expecting Schultz to either be re-signed or tagged. I thought that it was more likely he was re-signed, but obviously I was wrong there. What are your thoughts?
So basically you're saying like in terms of the guys they missed out on, like who's the biggest disappointment? Yeah. I mean, I would say the issue is like this whole tight end class was supposed to be like historically great. Remember, if people remember, Mark Andrews was supposed to be in this class as well. So we would have Andrews, Schultz, Evan Ingram had a much higher stock going into 2021 as a Pro Bowler in 2020. You look at guys like Njoku, who, continues to kind of be this big time allure for people, although he's had like 350 yards as a career high or 450 yards as a career high. I would say those guys are disappointing. Schultz, it was never really that realistic. It is kind of perplexing the Cowboys decided to, as of now, they chose their second tight end over their number one receiver, which is interesting. It's not great positional value, and as much as I love Schultz, you can't pay Schultz over paying Amari Cooper. Jesse Bates is one that sucks. He would have been a perfect fit. He's 25 years old. I'm biased. He's coming on the pod in 2 weeks. I thought the Jets had a chance at him, and so that would have been nice to kind of break that news on the pod. But he's a really good player, and I think that it's a shame just because he would have been a good player to kind of have. Harold Landry is one other one that I think when you didn't see him get tagged yesterday, there was some optimism. I know I saw some Jets fans on my timeline getting very excited that, they could give, quote unquote, give him the bag. I'm not sure that would have happened, but the chance of it to maybe potentially happen would have been nice. So those are the guys that kind of stand out to me. J.C. Jackson did not get tagged. The Jets are not interested. I reported last night. They're not going to be involved on J.C. Jackson. He will be playing his football in the Pacific time zone in 2021 or 2022. I apologize. So I can't say much more than that as of now. But he'll be in a division that is far harder than where the Jets are. Where the Jets are playing. So I'll leave it at that. But at the end of the day, I think they missed out on some guys, but this is what happens every year. I wrote an article, like, theoretically, if Devontae Adams is a free agent, what would you pay him? Probably a waste of 2 hours of my life that I can't get back. But unfortunately, that's the way it goes.
All right, cool. James, just general thoughts on, missing out on Schultz and Njoku, any of these guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, Dalton Schultz was up there, obviously, given the need at the tight end position. Essentially needed an entire new room there. So, Schultz was, the big fish along with, Jesse Bates, but then you still have, some other options there free agency wise. And we've kind of hit on the depth in the draft class there too. So I'll kind of take a little bit different angle there in terms of Cam Robinson being tagged. Now, Cam Robinson, I don't think he was going to come to the Jets. That's not kind of where I'm going to take it, but
I know where you're going.
What does it do to the first pick in the draft, right? Are they going to take it, an Icky and move him to a guard, and then maybe they move him to the outside to the left tackle after they're done with Cam Robinson there, and they just try to put together a wall for Lawrence and figure it out later, and then we got some pass rushers potentially falling there, or is it Hutchinson at the one, and then that kind of snowballs from there and turns into whatever it can turn into. I feel like the scenarios are endless almost with that first four because there is no quarterback for now anyway. I know maybe there's some combine rumblings in terms of maybe a Malik Willis at 2. I don't know, but ultimately, I was pretty curious with the Cam Robinson tag because I think it did have an effect or a potential effect on us sitting at number 4 in the draft.
Yeah, I think it definitely does play a factor. The odds right now are that Hutchinson's going to go 1. Doesn't mean that he will, of course. Those are just odds, but seems likely that they might not take another offensive lineman. But their offensive line was kind of a mess, right? Like Cam Robinson alone isn't really going to fix that, them tagging him. So maybe they get him and they get another tackle. Like maybe they're going to bookend it. I guess I wouldn't rule it out completely, but it is interesting to think about that. I think the biggest punch to the gut for me is Njoku. I know that there was that report that he was going to get tagged and they were planning to tag him. And I just was like, man, is that really going to happen? Are they really going to tag him and pay Austin Hooper double-digit money? Like I didn't really get that. But they're keeping a good player. I think he's a decent guy. And so I was really hoping that they would land him. So him not making it kind of sucked. So, all right. Tag players. We're done with that. We talked about the re-sign guys as well. I know a lot of people were hoping that Harold Landry would hit the market. He got the bag though. It was a 5 years, $87 million.
Yeah, it's a good pay as you play though deal. The Titans structured that last year with what's his name from the Steelers. They literally signed last year the edge rusher. They came off the torn ACL.
Dupree.
Bud Dupree, yeah. So it's like pretty much the same deal, but this year, like it's I think 17, like the 21 million, similar with the Chargers. There's like a signing bonus, so it's like his cap hit's going to be significantly less, and then next year, it'll skyrocket. So it's just interesting how these teams are structuring deals, which is why, as much as it seems like the Jets don't have as much cap space as like it's perceived, it can get to 60, 65 million in about 2 seconds of cutting 4 different guys who probably won't play significant snaps next year. It's crazy how it works.
Wow.
And they need to make some moves. That's the thing. I guess they're going to wait a little bit, but I still think they need to move on from a couple of guys. I guess there's no real urgency to do that right now until they start making moves. So I guess that's the plan. All right, let's keep it moving and grooving. We're going to go to something that will want to talk a lot about. You were there personally. Risers and fallers at the combine. I wrote some names down, but again, I wasn't there. We'll go to you first. Any guys that you felt like really skyrocketed? There's certainly some like obvious names, like the defensive tackle from Georgia,
Jordan Davis.
Yeah. So I saw that tweet from you where you sent a video of him running the 40, and you just were laughing emojis. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't really get it because I wasn't watching it live. And then I turned it on and I was like, holy moly! Like,
yeah,
geez,
it
Louise,
was incredible.
Crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean,
it
obviously does not mean anything, right? Like, you hope your 360-pound, defensive tackle is never running 40 yards unless he has the ball in his hands in some type of crazy scenario. I guess, I try not to overreact too much to what you see, just because you don't want to let it, when I put my rankings out today, they didn't change too much. Maybe 3 or 4 guys changed. Traylon Burks fell a little bit for me. I just thought he's a guy on film who is more athlete than polished route runner. And that's okay. But if you're not testing at the elite athlete level, it's just hard for me to get on board with you as like a top two guy in this class. So I like Burks. I think he's a top 20 pick. It's hard for me to get on board as of today, with him at 4 or 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
So Burks is one guy that fell. Kenyon Green, who's not really going to be an option for the Jets based on where they're picking, is a big faller for me. He just was below average to average in every testing category. 18 reps on bench as a power guard is not. I understand. Again, is bench the most important thing? No.
Sure.
As an offensive lineman, when I can bench more than you, we have a little bit of a problem. That's something that stood out as well. I thought from Kyle Hamilton's stock a little bit fell just because I think people were expecting this 4.4 guy. I didn't think that we were going to get that, but I also said that 4.59, 4.61 is not pretty either. And then one other guy, I would say that Kyron Williams, the running back at Notre Dame, again, not realistically going to be an option for the Jets unless it was round 3 or 4. Ran the mid 4.6s, which is very slow. I mean, he was not supposed to be a burner, but that's not great either. So those are guys that I guess were fallers. In terms of risers, Christian Watson, I'll kind of pat myself on the back. I wrote an article before the Senior Bowl and was like, this guy is like, you need to watch this guy's tape. He goes in the Senior Bowl, was really good and had a really nice week, measured out well. I thought showed out well, which was nice to see. Everyone will kind of want to see like, how fast is this guy? And then he runs in the 4.3s. He jumps out of the gym. Didn't do any short shuttle stuff, which is smart because I think that's the one part of his game where he's not like great. But he's a guy that he could be a late round 1, early round 2 guy. When I thought going to the Senior Bowl, I thought I was higher on him than anyone, and I had him as like a 3rd round guy. So it's his stock's rising for sure. Greg Dulcich, I saw some people commenting before. I thought he just tested well. He looked the part. He's more in that Mike Gesicki type of role where he's more of like going to be a big slot kind of guy. He's not really going to get, I don't know how, he's not going to get his hands dirty too much. Him and Isaiah Likely are more true pass catching tight ends, where guys like, Ruckert and McBride are more kind of well-rounded, kind of good at everything type of guys. It's a little disappointing not to see those 2 guys really test at all. Unfortunately, between the foot and McBride didn't test much. George Pickens, who I saw at the bottom of the screen, his stock was on the rise a little bit. He's someone that, again, people just wanted to see how he would run, how he would test. And, he tested below 4.4s. And for a guy at that size, I think that's really nice to see. Trying to think who else. Breece Hall had a really nice week as a running back. I know people don't really care much about the running backs just because everyone loves Michael Carter. But, and then from the corner position, I thought, again, Sauce is a guy that was a top 12 pick probably going into the weekend. And there's no way he's getting past 7 or 8 now, right? So I would say that's your stock's in the rise. I know. And then the other 2 guys, you mentioned Georgia. I guess there's three more guys I'll mention quickly. Lewis Seen, Georgia safety. All the tape was really good, but I mean, he tested like as well as humanly possible. I think he had 11-1 broad jump, which is insane. Ran in the 4.3s, verted 40-inch. Like he was, everything was special. The other two guys, both the Georgia defensive linemen, but Trayvon Walker, who's a guy that he's getting buzz at 3 now. I had him as a borderline first round guy 2 weeks ago, and it seems like right now he's an elite run defender. He's more athletic than Myles Garrett, and at the same size. Like he tested better in everything than Myles Garrett at that size. He has no pass rush plan, and that's why I can't take him at 4. Otherwise, you go whatever. We'll go with it. If you're expecting a 10-sack guy every year, maybe you get that, maybe you don't. So that's the issue with him. But he obviously is on the rise big time. And then, the other one is Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson had one of the best 10-yard splits you'll ever see from a defensive lineman. Again, another guy, great Senior Bowl week. People were really high on. It went from like day 2 guy, and now he's creeping into end of round 1, 20s. Now it's like, I don't know that he's getting to 10.
Right.
The Seahawks are at 9, and if they don't go quarterback, I think that's the spot you see him end up in. So we'll see there. But those are all guys that kind of come to mind, off the top of my head.
Yeah, hearing all this buzz about these edge players, it almost feels like the Jets, even if they miss out on Thibodeau, seems like they can, if they want to edge, they can rightfully and justifiably take somebody else. Like I don't see that being crazy. James, any risers or fallers that you have? I have a couple that Will did not mention as some guys.
Yeah, I have a couple here as well. Riser, I have Chris Olave down, and I know maybe it's not where it's a guy that was supposed to be second or third round or anything, but when you watch the tape, he's such a smooth, natural mover. He creates a ton of separation, a ton of production. 4 years at Ohio State, and you hear all the names, right? You hear the Garrett Wilson, you hear Jamison Williams, you hear Traylon Burks, you hear Drake London, and it's kind of like, all right, Chris Olave's kind of standing right there, and then he shows up to the track. And he runs a 4.39, 40. So that kind of confirmed the game speed that you kind of saw there. So there is the home run hitter kind of ability there, but also he is or does have that route running ability. There's some polish there that you can work off of. So I thought him, he's a guy that I think ultimately, it moved himself up in the first round, if anything, at that point in time with the way he tested. Another riser, I thought Sky Moore out of Western Michigan. He came in, he ran a 4.41 in the 40, but he also had a 34.5-inch vertical, 125 in the broad jump. So there's some explosiveness there. And he was a guy, PFF had him at a really good grade against man coverage, which I think for the Jets is something that they need to work on in terms of getting guys who can beat man coverage. So impressive there. And I don't know. I mean, when we do mock drafts, right? I mean, I don't have any sources or insiders or anything like that. But like when you do a mock draft, it's always like, oh, you get the David Bell and George Pickens at 35 and 38 as the guys that are available, and probably talk about Faller. David Bell's probably on that list there. But and then it's all of a sudden, all right, Sky Moore's available. What I've read, he may not get out of the second round or middle of the second round there. So big time riser there. I did have Kyron Williams as a faller as well, 4.65 in the 40. What I do like about him though is there's an aspect of just being a football player, right? And two things that the Jets running back room really had a hard time with last year was catching the football out of the backfield and pass protection. And he does both of those really, really well. So I don't know if the fall there would be enough, but if the Jets do want to add to this running back room to kind of complement things that Michael Carter does, I don't know, maybe a Kyron Williams does fall. And, athletically, not anything off the charts, obviously, but football player wise, you could put him in on third down if he's got a pass block and he's a willing player in that regard. My last faller, Majai Sanders. I don't know exactly how you say his first name, but I just thought first of all, Cincinnati had him listed at 250-ish or 250 something. Really, really lanky player when you watch him play. And then
so they asked him about this. I know you're going to go with this. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm like 228. What the hell? But
Yeah.
the day before, so they weigh in the morning, the day of when they test, right? So like the day before they do pressers. So I'm sitting there, Connor, all the the Jets people and whatever, and someone asked him how do you kind of combat being undersized, and he got like super pissed off, and I
Ooh.
was like that was weird. Like, why are you like? He must have known. Apparently, he had been sick the last couple of weeks and lost bunch of weight and whatever. I'm sure there's some truth to that. I'm sure he's also just literally down weight, but when they weighed him in at 228, everyone's like, huge red flag. Like, you cannot play
Definitely.
edge in the NFL at 228.
No.
Like, you can't do it. So, not to interrupt you, but that was a crazy scenario for everyone that saw that. We were there, and everyone's like, whoa, like what?
Sensitive subject, it seems. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, because and kind of going back to that, he got matched up quite a few times against Evan Neal in that that college football playoff game, and against the run, it did not go very well for him. I didn't see someone who could be that 4-3 defensive end, put his hand in the ground, and he can hold his own in the run game. Now he does have some power and some pass rush ability. Maybe the 3-4 linebacker is his spot, but ultimately at 228, and then and if he wasn't feeling well, that's I guess one thing. Because then the second piece is if you're going to weigh in at 228, you better test, really well. And I didn't think the testing there. He was a 1.62 in the 10-yard split at 228, 4.67 overall in the 40. And then 33 inch vert is pretty good. But at 228, when you're going to play that edge position there better be something that is extremely off the charts, and I just didn't find it there. So I think for the 4-3 aspect, maybe for our purposes, it's just someone who is not going to be a fit for us.
That's a great one. I didn't even have him on my list. I probably should have though. Okay, so just a couple of names, and if I don't remember, Will, if you said this name, but David Bell, he ran a 4.65, and I think
brutal.
I know, yeah. So he was actually one of the guys I was like hoping try to get in that 4 or 5 range, because then it's like, okay, we can justify it. And he's certainly going to fall because of that. There's no way he's going to go in that second round, I don't think, anymore. But the route running ability is still there. Everything that I watched looks good on tape, but it's just that straight line speed is not there for him. And so he's going to be one of those guys that's going to fall. And we've seen it before in the NFL, guys that run bad 40 times, especially at that wide receiver position, and they can be really good damn football players. So I'm not ruling him out by saying that he's a faller. I still really like David Bell. But again, has to be a faller because of that time.
I think it's a faller from where he was going to be, where people were thinking he's going to. I think people thought he was going to be an early day 2 guy. I think he is now a pretty firm, like he's going to be a round 4 guy. He's going to be someone like a Josh Palmer last year or Gabriel Davis. Obviously, very different profile and athlete. It's more of just like that guy that slips to round 4 that you take a shot on, and if they work, they work, and if they don't, it's a day 4 guy, or day 3 guy. I apologize, but Calvin Austin as well is a guy that I loved. I know I saw. He's just like. I think I was already really high on him. I don't think it really changed anything for me. Like at that size, you have to be a good athlete. 30-inch arms is is very small. At 5'8", 190 pounds, 180 pounds, you're very small. So being a 4.3 guy is awesome. But like if he was a 4.5 guy, he's like undraftable, right? Because you can't. then you're Braxton Berrios and like high 4.4s, and like Brax is awesome, but you can't take Brax in the 3rd round. So,
no worries.
Oh boy, the Cooper Kupp stuff. Oh, here we go.
Well, no, to be fair, he is saying David Bell had other weak measurements, so he's not saying he's Cooper Kupp. But okay. I think what
I wanted someone to do. Someone tried to do the Mike Vick, Kenny Pickett hand size comp.
Yeah,
a little different.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, David Bell was on my list for falling. And one name that I wrote down as a riser might seem obnoxious, but Garrett Wilson I actually have as a riser. I didn't expect him to run a 4.3. The reporting is that he was going to be like a 4.4, 4.5 guy. The fact that he was able to hit that top speed, pretty freaking awesome. We got a new subscriber, Benjamin Mendez. Thank you for subscribing, dude. Really cool to see you pop up on the screen like that. And then the other one who I don't know a lot about him, and from what I understand, he is going to be an edge, Leo Chenal from Wisconsin. Dude, as far as I understand, he had a pretty damn good scouting combine. Good edge player, and I don't know if he fits necessarily what we're doing, but he was a riser on my list for sure. And what do you want to say something about him? Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So Leo Chanel's like an interesting guy. Anyone on Jets Twitter, like he draws death row on his arms. It's like uber jacked up dude. So he's impressive. Trey Anderson's another one, ran 4.41. I'm high on him. He'll be a day 2 pick. But so Leo Chanel had a really good had a really good combine. He had his pro day today. He went 4.53 in the 40, 40.5 inch vert, 10.8 broad, 3.9 shuttle, 34 reps on bench, and a 6.8 3 cone at 6'3", 250. Every single one of those things is in the 95th percentile or higher. So, yes, he's very much an option for the Jets, and yes, I think it'd be fun. If his arms were longer, he would be like a Michael Parsons guy, where you line him up at edge and you just let him rush the passer. He's gonna play linebacker, but he certainly showed out today. I'll say that much. That is about as good as you could possibly get for a ripped up white dude at Wisconsin. That is not, you don't expect 95th percentile in every single category.
So to be clear, you're saying he probably doesn't fit what we're doing then on the edge?
No, he does. He does.
Oh,
he will.
does.
So
Okay.
maybe not an edge. He's probably a guy that'll play more linebacker, but you can move him around. Maybe he plays outside linebacker somewhere else. He's a guy that's just versatile. And like when you're that good of an athlete, I think you just find someone, you find space for the guy and you let him make plays, right? At the end of the day. Right now, the way the Jets kind of maneuvering, like linebacker, ideally, maybe it's a guy more in the 230 pound range that runs, but like he's obviously running well. So
yeah, right.
It's not like, it's not, he's like not a 4.7 guy. Like that's why the Jamie Sherwood thing was a little weird last year. He was very slow at safety. This scheme almost needs you to be faster at linebacker than it does at safety. So just saying, that was a little weird.
Yes. Thank you, Jamal Simpson. Really appreciate you subscribing, buddy. Really means a lot. Thank you for checking out the content as well. All right. This is awesome. Really cool to have your perspective. I am a Jack you-know-what fan. I pretend like I know what I'm talking about most of the time, and I do research it. I'm not just sitting here, making stuff up. But it is good to have somebody that really, really researches it. And that's why that's why I give myself a pat on the back, because I get people that know more than me on the channel.
I do the same thing, man. I do the same thing. I try to be the stupidest person on the pod. That's my goal every time. Hopefully, it makes people smarter.
Yep. All right. Well, cool stuff. This is all good stuff. I do want to go to free agency before we talk linebackers in this draft class. So let's do that. It's a topic that's pretty cool because it is now just a couple of days away. So Joe Douglas, he talked about it, I mean, probably every offseason, but I remember notably last offseason, he talked about how you have to have, a plan A, and then when that plan doesn't, work out, you have to be able to pivot and move to your next plan. So I thought it would be kind of fun to have, maybe a player at a position that your plan A, and then who's your plan B, if that guy's gone. So for example, sorry, James. Too many names, too many different names. James, he's been talking about Marcus Williams as one of his guys, probably his plan A safety, but who would be his plan B? That's what I'm kind of asking here. And I have a list here of players. If you guys want to go first, whoever wants to go at it, go with it.
Do you want to go, John?
Oh, you want me? Me?
Yeah, come on, dude. Yeah.
All right, perfect, beautiful. That's why I asked you guys, just so you could defer to me. I'll give you a couple positions because I did write down 7 different position groups. So my plan A for safety right now, and my option 1, I think, is Jordan Whitehead. And somebody mentioned him earlier. I think he would be a hell of a signing. He's really young. He might be expensive, and that might be why he's not even on the table for the Jets. But he is a very, very good safety. And like I said, young, could play in the box, but also is good in coverage. could help against the tight end, covering. And then the plan B is Justin Reed, the Texans safety. I think that's a guy that you can definitely pivot to. I don't know if we land either one of those guys, but I think as far as a plan A, plan B, I think that's a pretty good setup. And then O-line, I've been talking about it all off season in regards to my preference being let's go pay somebody in free agency now while Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker are on their rookie contracts. Let's go pay somebody. So plan A is James Daniels. Go pay him some money. He fits the scheme. He's young and, not an elite lineman, but a very solid and very good lineman would stabilize the interior. And then plan B, it's pretty obvious, Laken Tomlinson. He is an absolute rock. I just did a video this week on free agent players. He has not missed a game in, I think, the last 3 seasons, and he's played 100% of the snaps. So an absolute just rock. You cannot knock him. You can't move him, and played in the scheme that we play. So scheme fit, and I get it. He's a little bit older. I think it's so ridiculous when fans, and not everybody does this, but when some fans say to themselves, he is beyond such and such age, he can't be signed. We shouldn't be interested in players like that. I think that is absolute horse crap. You have to build your team in a variety of ways, and it's not just signing young players. Of course, that's the best option, but you have to be able to have a mixture of things. So Laken Tomlinson is my plan B, and I will now defer to you, James, since you deferred to me. You get kudos for that, brother. What is the plan A, plan B scenario for you? You don't have to give me one. You can give me 2, 3, whatever you want.
Yeah, I'll go quick here. So Marcus Williams is my plan A, but I know kind of the potential limitation financially. I think an interesting plan B is a guy like Jaron Curse from the Cowboys. Had a really kind of a career year here in 2021. He's a bigger safety, a lot of positional versatility. You can line him up in a lot of different spots. A little bit older, but I'm starting not to worry too much, only because I don't think he's going to get a monster deal or anything like that. So you're not really worried about long-term, financial ramifications there. But I think Jaron Curse is an interesting plan B at the safety spot, given the fact that we are likely going to have to double dip in the draft at some point in time. So DJ Jones, I mentioned him earlier. Plan B, an interesting plan B is a guy like BJ Hill from Cincinnati. He was with the Giants, then went to Cincinnati there. And they got to start bringing in some guys that have, that veteran playoff type of experience. Now BJ Hills now has Super Bowl experience, and, start to bring guys into that locker room there, but obviously a productive player on the interior of the defensive line. Devondre Campbell at the linebacker spot. I think it's an interesting thought because of the All-Pro play in 2021 and the familiarity with a guy like Jeff Ulbrich from his Falcons days there. Maybe you worry a little bit about, was it not 1 year type of wonder, but ultimately he wasn't always an All-Pro. So there is an interesting plan A if they really want to upgrade the linebacker room. I don't know what their thought process is on who is there currently. And then plan B, Olukan. I'm not even going to try his first name, but from
Foye,
is that how you say it? Okay.
I think so.
Him from that guy from the Falcons. I like, and we'll talk about linebackers too. I tend to put a little bit more stock in the numbers for linebackers sometimes, only because they're around the football, and they're, if they have that kind of production, they're around the football for some kind of reason, right? And the tape sometimes finds out that the average depth tackle is too far down, but ultimately, if they got numbers, they're around the football for some reason or another. And he had a bunch of tackles there for the Falcons this year. Now, corner. I want to discuss corner. I don't know what the plan A is, though. The plan A could just be, obviously draft wise, if they go with Sauce at number 4, but are they going to dip into the free agency class? Is a guy like Dante Jackson going to hit, he wasn't tagged, right? I don't believe he was tagged. Is he going to hit the market? I mean, we want to talk about combine warriors there. That dude is a freak of nature.
Yes.
Was really good at LSU. And I do think he fits the zone scheme where he can break on the football and potentially pick off some passes, which we did not get from our cornerback or our cornerback room this year. 2 picks from the cornerbacks altogether. They were both by Brendan Eccles there. So, I don't know what plan A in free agency is, if there is a plan A for the cornerback spot, but I'm kind of interested in Dante Jackson and what he could potentially provide. If we go that route.
That's a pretty good list. What do you think, Will?
I'll keep it short, just to a couple positions here. You guys said a bunch of people. Carlton Davis, I'd say plan A, from a cornerback position. I think he'll get somewhere between $14 and $15 million annually. He is turning 26 this year. He is still age 25. He'll play this year at 25. So, zone heavy corner was the Bucs' number 1, would be instantly the Jets' best corner by a wide margin. I believe that is a name to watch out for. Casey Hayward's another name, but from a kind of B-level target, DJ Reed out of Seattle, another zone heavy scheme, only 5'9", but 78.6 PFF grade, was the 8th best, graded corner there last year. So he's a name to watch on more of a B-level kind of list. I mentioned earlier, in terms of center, Ryan Jensen's a plan A type of guy. Brian Allen from the Rams would be more of a B-level type, in my opinion, at least. And then if you want to go target receiver, Allen Robinson, I think everyone's kind of pretty familiar with what he brings to the table. There, I was going to say Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Like, this was something that he was a guy I was curious about, in Indy, how he would get what kind of market he had. There's people telling me he's going to get between $11 and $13 million a year.
Wow.
So I don't see that happening, especially at that number. A name I would say as a Cowboys guy is Cedric Wilson. Interesting guy, incredible, size for a guy that's more of a slot guy. But he's a guy that maybe you bring in if Barrios walks and you address something in the draft. I think those guys would be interesting, as well.
Awesome. I do want to get your thoughts because Ephraim just subscribed and he also asked a question. And this is a guy that I've talked about. Feel free to smash it if you don't like it. It won't hurt my feelings. Any thoughts on Christian Kirk?
I would prefer. I think there's better use of the Jets' money. I don't hate the player. He was a high upside guy coming out of A&M. He's been a productive player in the league. He's more of a slot guy. I would struggle with why you bring in Christian Kirk for between $12 and $14 million a year. If you feel like Elijah Moore can be that player for you, as that vertical kind of threat from the slot and kind of guy that can get open, and then you could just draft somebody. The PFF. I mean, sorry, I was just looking at some of the comments. The receiver room's a bit odd. Allen Robinson's really the only guy, other than, depending upon what you see with Amari Cooper, I think it has to be the right environment for him. I think that's one thing that no one's really talked about. Why would he want to come to the Jets at this point? He's in that point of his career where you have probably 3 years to really go win a title. Unfortunately, the Jets are not in that window yet. They will be. I think he's more of a guy similar to what Robert Saleh told us on Tuesday. The Jets are not going to make that. They don't seem like they're going to make that mega trade for the Stephon Diggs type when they want to do that when they're 1 player away or 2 players away, right? Where the Rams making the move for an Odell or things like that. The Jets aren't there yet. They're getting there. There's been a nice start, and we all hope that they are there much sooner rather than later. I think we can all agree there, but I'm not sure on Kirk. The market seems like it's going to be, again, that $12 to $14 million a year, which is kind of like you just paid Corey Davis in that type of market. It's just hard to be let's just keep paying guys that are more number 2s. And then it's it's nice to have depth, but it's also be nice to have one guy that kind of commands double teams. And as much as I love Elijah, he's not at the double team him every game, stratosphere yet.
Yep. No, there's nothing wrong with that. None of that stuff that you said is crazy. The only things I will say that I like the things that I like about Kirk is that I think that with Allen Robinson, I still question what kind of contract he's going to get. Is he going to get a long-term deal? And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that too? Like, James, what are your thoughts on Allen Robinson getting a long-term deal? He is one of my options, by the way. Allen Robinson would be great. And he is the guy that could potentially get those double teams. And he is that guy that has shown wide receiver one ability. But my
I would
good
say
thing,
I bet you he's like so I think there's two options here. I bet if I was Allen Robinson's agent, which I am not, he's still 28. You look at guys like Adams, all these guys getting paid still at 29. Julio got his mega extension at 29. I would imagine he probably goes somewhere, whether it's the Jets or Miami or somewhere where he feels like he can put up a big season. He gets a 1 year, $14 million deal or $15 million deal, prove it deal, and then tries to go, crazy, get crazy money next year. I think it's hard to pay someone like that long term just based on having a random, like, his target share was cut in half, and I don't think he was very bought into what Chicago is doing. He's a Pro
and
Bowl level receiver.
and
So Fields, yeah.
that's my big problem with it, is that I do agree with you. I think that's the kind of contract he's gonna get, and I said that in the video. And I am at the point where I'm okay with paying a wide receiver 2, like you said, because that is what Kirk is. He's never going to be a wide receiver 1. I'm actually more okay with paying him and signing him to a longer deal, because I think that at some point there has to be continuity for Zach Wilson to really thrive, and that's the balancing act, and that's the part that's going to be really challenging for Joe Douglas, is to figure out what's better for him and what's better for the Jets, in general. What are your thoughts on that, James? I want to hear signing a guy like a Kirk that could be here longer versus maybe Robinson shorter term. But again, potentially they may sign him to a longer deal. It just depends. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, and you're right. Continuity wise, there does need to be, some aspect of that. We've kind of touched on that quite a bit, John, in terms of, making sure guys are around to get that chemistry going. You guys are in and out. It's always kind of difficult, to kind of get that gel on offense and defense as well. But, offense here, we're kind of worried about the quarterback. So Allen Robinson to me would be a pretty nice option there for Zach Wilson to have the route running ability, and then just the knack to be able to get open, right? To be able to, understand the zones and to be able to sit there and get open for Zach Wilson. That's something that is super intriguing there, and can be wide receiver 1 ability. Will mentioned he has Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver, and he is that. And then it for me, it's about the big fish at the wide receiver spot. I don't know who it is, but at some point there has to be. And you think about the name DK Metcalf has been like going crazy on Jets Twitter in terms of the trade market of what we could potentially get if certain guys are available, right? And you think about the guy that, like DK Metcalf, running down the sideline, what he would command, while guys like Elijah Moore are kind of roaming around the field, getting open in that regard. And so I do think they need to go big game. Christian Kirk, for me, good player. The money per year would just kind of worry me if it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, we brought him in, and he does the job, but is that job enough for what we need to be done in this offense to take it to the next level? I'm not sure that's the case, but yeah, I mean, Allen Robinson, I'm in with. I don't know what kind of deal he's going to get, but if it's the 1 year deal, I wouldn't shy away from it, just because even if he does leave, right, that year of development, Zach can take certain things and they can reload and kind of figure it out. But it is all about getting Zach comfortable, because when he was in a rhythm, when he was getting comfortable, that's when he started to shine just a little bit. So it's all about QB1 there.
Yeah, none of it's crazy.
Denzel Mims will not be a Jet in.
I'm glad you're saying that.
It's over. I can tell you in Indy, it is over.
So sad.
It's over.
That sucks too. So many of us were we really, really believed quite strongly that he was going to be an outside threat.
As you should have.
Yep.
You should have.
Yep.
There's people they're throwing it in there. Mims will be here. Mims comeback player of the year. I don't see it. And I was like defending him, early portion of the year. I felt like, I was even like kind of questioning like why aren't they giving him the ball? Like all that stuff was, part of the conversation. So if you guys don't mind, we've got 87 of y'all in here, and it's the most ever. Go ahead and hit the like button. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Hope you're enjoying Will, our guest tonight. Please check out his content on Turn on the Jets. It's the podcast, and it is in the description for the stream. Really, really appreciate you coming on tonight for us and hanging out with us talking Jets. We're going to move, and we're going to go to probably the last segment of the night here. I don't know if we're going to have time for a mock, and that's okay because we're really focused on free agency. But we're going to end it with some draft conversation here, and it's going to be focused on linebackers. It doesn't have to be necessarily the way we've done it the last couple of weeks, where we've really given like a very specific 1 through 10. But maybe we could just have like an open discussion and take turns talking about linebackers that we like in this draft class rather than doing a top 10. You can tell me, of course, where they're ranked because you just did yours, just recently. So if you want to share that, that's totally cool. And James, same thing. If you want to say the number that you have them ranked, I have a list here. I had a hard time though because I'm looking it up and I'm saying to myself, is this guy an edge? Is this guy an outside linebacker? It's kind of that thing where you're not really sure. So I have a couple of guys that I left off, Chanel being one of them. But if he can stand up, I would have him very high on the list. He would be one of my favorite targets. So let's go to you, James, first, and then we'll go to Will. Anybody you want to talk about? Fantasy sport, pure adrenaline fantasy sports is screaming Dean.
I have Dean as I'll cut to the chase there. He's my number one linebacker in the class. And I get it. 5'11", 229, and he didn't test at the combine. You look back, Patrick Queen, 6 foot, 229 pounds at the combine, and actually did have shorter arms than Nakobe Dean did. But when you watch the tape for Nakobe Dean and what the Jets, if they're going to address this linebacker position, have to be all over is the read and react ability. If we have to watch another screen pass where no one knows what's going on, it's going to be a disaster. They have to get someone in there with some instinctual ability. But that's not obviously all that he can do. When he reads it and he reacts, he's a heat-seeking missile to the football. He's got sideline to sideline ability. And in the run game, he could fill those gaps. I know he played behind probably, every time you turn around, you're talking about someone from the Georgia defense at some level, defensive line, edge, linebacker. I mean, you could probably put 3 of them just on your top 10 list if you really wanted to at this, at this top 10 linebacker spot. And then you got Lewis Sign in the back there. So Nakobe Dean, when you watch him on tape, there's a power, there's a read and react. There is good tackling ability. And then he has upside in coverage. I know he'll probably have a little bit of struggles with the bigger tight ends given his height. But I do have him at number 1. And then I think the popular is Dean, Dean and Lloyd in some kind of combination of 1 and 2 there. Now Lloyd was a 4.66 guy in the 40, which I think people were, I don't know if people were disappointed. Most likely they were. But even so for him, he's the rangy guy, right? He's I'm going to use my length to get in, in the pass coverage lane. He picks, he's going to pick the footballs off all over the field, tackles for losses, but ultimately the read and reactability, that's where I kind of put Nakobe Dean up ahead of a guy like Devin Lloyd. But 1 and 2, I don't think you could go wrong with either. Towards the back end, a guy that seemed relatively popular was Brandon Smith from Penn State. And I don't know where you guys had him ranked there. Pretty good measurables there. I mean, 35-inch arms at the combine, 37.5-inch vertical. But I wasn't seeing a whole lot in the run game. And at least, I mean, I haven't really watched all that much Penn State defense, but at least PFF had him at a 47.6 run defender with a 16% missed tackle rate. So that's an interesting aspect there of like he may be able to cover anybody given his measurables. But at some point, if you're playing that linebacker position, whether you're the Mike, you're the Sam, you're the Will, whatever it's going to be, if they think you're a weakness in the run game, they're going to attack it. So I had him lower than maybe I saw online just because that run game really scares me. Now, where I'll end is I put Chad Muma ahead of Christian Harris. And
Wow.
I like Christian Harris a lot. There's an explosive nature to his game. The 4.44 matched up with what you see with the burst on the film. He's an effective blitzer. Where I gave Chad the upper echelon there in ranking him over Christian Harris was the pass coverage game. I think Chad is really good in that regard, and he's not lacking in the run game either.
Not at all.
Didn't run as fast, but did have, I mean, the 40-inch vertical for him, and then the 129 broad jump. There's an explosive nature to him, just as much there. So I guess really,
he had a 40-inch vert. Jeez.
Yeah, was
that
that's
seems
correct,
really
right?
high. That's pretty
I hope I
damn good
didn't,
jump right there.
Yeah. Yeah, so instant for him, I mean, the stat line was 142 tackles there, and so him, I actually put over Christian Harris. It was a tough call, so my 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll stop rambling on here. Was Dean, Lloyd, Muma, Christian Harris, and then a bunch of guys that I could not figure out how to rank after that, but I have a whole bunch of guys on the list.
All right, and then one thing before I let you go, Will, I was just gonna say something that I read about Muma. Guy I'm really high on. He received one of the highest run defense grades in all of college football. That was one of the things that I read. So very instinctual, and it really gets after it in the run game. All right, what do you got for us, Will? Oh, wait a minute.
I'm
Oh,
muted. Yep, there it is.
All good.
I guess I'll walk through my top 5 first, and then I'll kind of highlight some of the other names. I have Devin Lloyd 1, Nakobe Dean 2. I think Devin Lloyd just projects a little bit better in terms of, like you guys mentioned, Dean's size. It's not ideal, and I think he's more explosive than fast. So we'll see there. But I mean, I like both players. It's not that. I think they're end of round one, back half round one at a minimum, guys there. So we'll see from that perspective. After that, I have Walker, Muma, and Asamoah. I think people have a lot of these guys all over the place. I have Leo Chanel 6, Christian Harris 7, Trey Anderson 8, Beavers 9, and Smith 10. So I'm high on Quay Walker. I just, for some reason, these Georgia guys, just like, I don't know how you don't just draft all of them.
That's crazy.
He's a pretty balanced player. He's able to line up everywhere a little bit in the box, his slot, played some D-line stuff. Like he's an impressive guy. So I think, we'll see there. That can move pretty quickly for me. I'm not really dead set on you could mix around 4 or 5 of these, these day 2 linebackers and Tyndall's another guy. Like there's a lot there. But I'm higher on Brian Asamoah than probably anybody. I just think he would be perfect in this defense. I think playing as that weak side linebacker next to CJ Mosley would do damage. He's a guy at 220, 230 that he hits, man. Like Senior Bowl, he was in practice. He was popping people. And that was my one small concern with Chad Muma is like, he's such a good athlete and like, he looks so good on film. And I just felt like the Senior Bowl, like he was like taking contact as opposed to giving contact. And I know it's practice and whatever, it's an all-star game, he's a small school guy, whatever. There's a million reasons I don't want to overthink it too much. That said, I was a little disappointed when you look at a guy like Brian Asamoah, who was like blowing guys up in the run game. Mm-hmm. And then you look at Chad Muma, who's kind of like taking on contact, and it's like, based on size, it should be the opposite. Again, probably overthinking it, but still high on him. Leo Chanel, I did these rankings, of course, like before his pro day today. I tried not to move him too much. He's at 6 right now. I could easily see him finishing at 3. So we'll see there. But linebackers, I'm not too dead set on. I'm just dead set Devin Lloyd's Devin Lloyd is one for me. And then it's Nakobe Dean, and then I think it's a small gap, and then kind of goes from there.
All right, very cool. And I think, if I understand correctly, you got to run, Will. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to release this mock draft that I've been working on, and it's like I have to finish typing the last paragraphs, and people are up my ass about getting it out. So I want to make sure I get that out before
Dude,
10.
this was an absolute blast. Your insight
Thank you
was
guys for having me on.
awesome.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And hope you consider coming back at some point. Doesn't
Of
have to
course,
be.
I'd love to.
Yep. Well, thank you again, man. And again,
Thanks,
guys,
Will.
please feel
Yeah.
free to check out his content. And again, in the description, it is going to have his podcast. Will, have an awesome night, man.
Thanks so much, guys.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, have a good night.
There you go. I got to say, the new setup, being able to, talk to each other via the chat, and the new setup of sending the links is really sweet. I just got to figure out this audio. It's really annoying me. I would love to be able to hear you guys in here. That would be the best. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed Will coming on tonight. I thought that was great. Lots of great insight there. And he's gone, but your comment, I'm sure, is appreciated. Yeah, I thought he had a lot of good stuff to say. And I don't know if I want to talk too much about the linebackers. You guys said a lot of good things. The one thing I'll say is Christian Harris, to me right now, seems like the guy that would really fit what we do and what we want our linebackers to do. I'm not saying he's necessarily the best linebacker, but in terms of where he's going to go and what the Jets want their linebackers to do, I think he is ridiculously top-notch fit. 6'2", 232, ran a 4.4.
Yeah.
Plenty of college snaps, over 2,000 in college, so he has lots of experience. Very, very strong. He power cleaned 400 pounds, as far as I understand, which is insane. And the big thing we talked about, and I made a video about linebacker and the ability for them to read and react and to get going quickly, not hesitating. The thing that he's just not hesitating. He's not waiting. He is going, and he is attacking the line of scrimmage. And in 116 pass rush reps, he had 31 quarterback pressures. So he is not a one-trick pony. He is a versatile linebacker that can do it all. So the thought of him playing, that Mike position next to CJ would be pretty sweet. You want to say something?
Yeah, and I know it's not to be biased or anything here, but he was the ringleader for a Nick Saban defense for quite some time. They asked him to do a whole heck of a lot. And it's not a simple scheme that he's coordinating there. So the mental makeup for Christian Harris is absolutely there in terms of what he could do. And you pair him with the other guy he used to call the plays for Nick Saban, and you got a pretty good mental makeup there behind the defensive line. And you take one look at that national championship game. Now, Alabama lost, but Christian Harris was a menace in that game. It was awesome to watch, and he's quite the athlete, and he's going to be a really good linebacker in the NFL.
Awesome stuff. All right. Well, so I don't know what you have planned. I'm going to do a mock draft regardless if you stick with me or not. What is your preference here, buddy?
I'm here. Let's do it.
All right, cool. I wasn't sure if we'd get there, but we got time. We're before 10 o'clock. So let's do a little mocky mock. Let's see how far we can get in this mock. Let me get you up on this screen here.
By the way, while you're getting that set up, did you take a look at Troy Anderson at all?
I do. He is on my list, and he's on FCS level, which I think is a knock for him. But regardless, everything that I've read about him is through the roof, really, really
Yeah.
positive. You want to talk about him while I'm setting it up?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I didn't really know much about him, and then I started to dig, and he's on my list. And one of the more unique stories has to be in NFL draft maybe history in terms of where he was where he is now. I mean, he was always at Montana State, but he was a running back / linebacker his freshman year and got the Big Sky Freshman of the Year. Then they moved him to quarterback his sophomore year, and he did great there because he was a high school quarterback. And then they move him to full-time linebacker, and he's one of the best linebackers in the, ultimately in the country if you're just kind of putting it in a vacuum. But a 4.4 240 at 243 pounds. I mean, that's an athlete there that you could probably do almost anything you want with him. I mean, you can, if he doesn't start right away, he's in some kind of package. I just think he's a really interesting player, that it could be very versatile and potentially a really good linebacker in this league, despite playing for, a Montana State.
Absolutely. And I think he's one of those guys. With what he did at the combine, he's going to be a guy that a lot of people are interested in, regardless of what level he played at.
Right.
Yeah, Grant Root, I think I've made I've made it pretty clear. I feel like you got to look at the player and not focus too much on where they play and who they play. Are they winning their matchups, and do they project to the NFL? Like, that's the big thing. And another guy that's out there that's not an not an FCS guy, but Cameron Thomas from San Diego State, he projects very well to the NFL, and he does some damn good things on the football field. So, I'm more or less the guy of like, what are they going to do at the NFL? I don't really care too much about who they played in college, though. So, do they project well? What did they do in college? That's really what I'm after. What do I use? I use Ecamm Live. Thank you for asking. All right, we're going to do a mock draft. So we're going to go ahead and say, for right now, we're going to do a 7-round, and we'll kind of go maybe quicker on some picks as we get later in the draft. We only have 5 rounds of picks unless we trade back in any of these rounds. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hit continue here. And we're going to see who gets taken. Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Evan Neal are off the board. And I'm going to do my best to make sure you guys can see everything. So there are the first 3 picks. And let me back this up so that's not so close. Okay. So there they are. And we know the board. Ikem Ekwonu is there. Kyle Hamilton is there. Ahmad Gardner is there. I'm not taking Kyle Hamilton at 4. I would say Ikem Ekwonu or Ahmad Gardner, I feel like make the most sense there. We talked about this earlier in the show, James. So it's put up or shut up time. Who are you taking it for?
I'm taking Sauce Gardner, and I'm not looking back.
That's kind of how I feel, man. That's what I would say. Carmelo says I was hoping for KT or Ikem. Rusty's saying let's trade number 4. I'm okay with trying to do that. Lock mocks. Can you share that link? I like that mock setup. Frank, I can, and I will put that in the community tab on YouTube. This is actually from our boy James here. He was the one that shared this with me, and I have to say I do like the setup of this one. All right, So Rusty says trade or Tarday. He's speaking a different language to me. Grant agrees with us. He's saying, let's go Sauce. Frank says, Ikem or Sauce. He doesn't really care, it looks like. Rusty is now threatening me. He says, you better trade it. Frank says Sauce. Yes. Matt Morris, and he was talking earlier, and he is very, very high. I saw him in the comments talking about Jordan Davis. Why don't I give you a chance to talk? Because I don't know if we actually talked enough about him. What are your thoughts on Jordan Davis? Maybe not at 4, but in general, if we took him.
I'm not picking him at 4 or 10. I mean, I get the whole combine thing. I just, first of all, I shouldn't say it like that. It's not to be like mean towards the guy. It's not his fault. I don't want to pick him for the Jets, but he is an older player as well. That's one thing. We can fact check this. So we got a lot of people in the chat here. Someone pull up what his age is, but I think it may be potentially 25 or 26.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, if he's that
I
old.
can be completely wrong there, but I read it. So whoever I read it from could be wrong, but I do believe he's an older player. I just get worried that he's not going to be able to keep the stamina up. Like he's a big guy and he moves well and he does everything well, but if it's the fourth quarter and and he's got to stand up and make a play, is he going to have that juice, right? Because we're not going to be Georgia's defense. That's just a fact. We're not going to be Georgia's defense, so I just don't know. I shouldn't say I don't know. I'm not comfortable with taking him at 4 or 10.
Yeah, and all of the talent it seems he has. I'm not interested in taking a defensive tackle. One of the positions that I feel like we're okay at. We've got Quinnen Williams. I still think Jonathan Frankel Myers plays more reps on the inside this season, so I feel pretty decently with where we're at. We also have Jonathan Marshall coming back this year, and I feel like he's stuck. They didn't cut him. He didn't go to the practice squad. Unless I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he was on the 53-man roster. We could get somebody in the draft and take a defensive tackle, but I would not do it in the first round. I think that's a poor use of our draft. Let's see. A lot of people are saying IK, and by IK I mean Icky. DK, dude, I want DK in the worst way, and we didn't talk about him. So, James, help me out on this one. And I know you feel the same way because I saw you talking about it on Twitter. Why do people not want DK Metcalf, even if we're giving up 10?
Because people like to hoard draft picks so that they could get their favorite college players, and I legitimately think that's like a thing. Like people want to hold on to the picks and then go berserk on draft day for all these highly touted college players. I think that's a legitimate reason there, and it's time to add the talent. It's time to get somebody in here. If they could get a DK Metcalf in here, it changes the game in terms of what we could potentially do on offense. And I don't know why people are against it, but you have to do something.
Yeah. All right. So before I put a poll up, and this poll got a ton of votes, which is awesome. I said, what position do people want to spend big on in free agency? And the top getter was O-line. Bravo to my community of viewers, because that is the correct answer. You passed the test. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do a poll here for the early pick, because I feel like if I don't, people are going to kill me. So we're going to give you 3 options. We're going to give you trade down. We're going to give you sauce. And we're going to give you iChem. I would be fine with all 3 of those options. So I'm going to ask the community. Trade down, sauce, or iChem. It is up. Go ahead and cast your vote right now. Yeah, no worries. That's how I feel like that's the best way to engage you guys. I'm not trying to have you just sit here and watch us do a mock draft, although that's kind of cool too for you guys, I'm sure. Maybe we'll do an episode where we don't listen to a damn thing you say and we'll just do our own mock draft. But I do like to engage with you guys and I like to involve you. So that's kind of the idea there. Again, the option is trading down, taking iChem, which right now he's slaughtering, and Sauce Gardner. James and I said, let's go get the cornerback, because I think right now, as we sit here, the rumor mill right now is churning that the Jets want and they covet a number 1 cornerback. Maybe they do that in free agency, but I'm starting to think they're going to look to the draft. And it might not be Sauce Gardner, but they're going to get somebody. All right, I'll give it a couple more seconds, but iChem right now is the top vote getter. Yeah, and I think depending on what we do in free agency, there's nothing wrong with going and getting iChem. Joe Douglas will probably love what he sees on tape with him. Sauce is creeping up, actually. Now that I said that, he's actually climbing a little bit here. Yeah, Snoopy, that's how I feel. I like the idea of getting our cornerback, and again at
Yeah.
10, and this is why double defense. And I have a video talking about it. Double defense is not as crazy as I had thought
No.
that it would be. It makes a lot of sense, actually. And there's some really good offensive players that you can get in that second round. Most of the time I see Ikem is playing in positions Ikem and Makai and AVT play. So if we were to draft him, that's the shuffle that I'm not sure what's going to happen. The only guess would be is that he's going to go to guard, and they're going to keep Fant at left and Makai at right tackle, and then eventually move Ikem to tackle. But that's a tricky situation. How do they navigate that? Holy crap. 41% of the votes are Sauce. 41% of the votes are Ikem. It's a tie is what we have right
now. So tie goes to the
yes,
to the host.
That's right. That's right. To the host, because we don't get to vote. All right. Ikem just bumped back up. People were not having it. Double defense does make the most sense depending on who's available. My dream scenario, though, is second round is Zion Johnson and McBride. McBride would be great. I think Zion will be gone, sadly. It's a tie again, 42%. All right, what do you say? We'll take Sauce? We haven't taken Sauce yet.
Yeah, we haven't taken Sauce yet. Yep, let's take him.
We're going to go ahead and we're going to make Sauce the pick, guys. And, if you're very adamant about offensive line, don't go crazy because, again, the Jets could address offensive line in free agency. It might not even be a need. So, with that said, Ahmad Gardner, we're going to take him at 4. Nice. And I know this is like James and I have been wanting to take him. I don't know have we ever gotten him?
No, we haven't.
So that's good. All right. So here are the picks after him. We've got Kyle Hamilton. Oh my God. So Ikem, after I made him the pick, Ikem climbed way higher. So Kyle Hamilton went to the Giants. Ikem went to the Panthers, which I think is a great draft pick for them. Charles Cross goes to the Giants. Derek Stingley to the Falcons. I don't see that as a fit. And David Ajabo at 9 to the Seattle Seahawks. They have not updated the 9th pick yet. And we are back on the clock. The New York Jets are back on the clock. And before I go to the comments here, guys, I am going to run through our positions. Let me make sure you guys can see. Yes, you can. Okay. Let's take a look at wide receiver, which I believe we're in a really good spot here. We could get Garrett Wilson. Yeah. That's pretty nice. Drake London is available. Let's take a look at edge. George Karlaftis is available. Jermaine Johnson is available. So 2 really, really sexy edge rushers there available. Offensive lineman Trevor Penning is available. He's a guy that people talk a lot about.
Yeah,
I'm not high on him personally. That's my stance on it, is that I don't love the fact that he is a penalty machine in college football. I feel like that doesn't translate well to the NFL. You're going to be a turnover guy, a penalty guy in college. You're very likely to be one in the NFL. So
yeah, and it's like that clip that circulates about him where he's like throwing that guy to the ground, but he's actually throwing him into his quarterback's legs.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, well, it's fun. He's like tossing another human being, but like I don't really want my left tackle to be throwing the defensive end into the pocket. That's not really where I don't know. So something about it, maybe it's just the way people react to the clip that's throwing me off about him. But I don't think it's where the Jets ultimately go.
And another thing about that clip, and maybe you could tell me I'm wrong, when he does that move, it's pretty much holding, right? Like
it seems to be that way. I guess it would just, and I'm trying to think of the clip. It just depends like where he grabs him and throws him from. Like, it's, does he grab and throw? I can't really, I'm trying to remember. All I know is that poor Desmond Ridder, or whoever it was back there, almost got his knees taken out.
I saw that. That's craziness.
Yeah.
And Carmelo El Bori's way, he's like, he is a savage. Sign me up. There are people out there really, really high on him. Just because James and I maybe aren't as
Right.
much, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have, some value there. I did not consider too many other names here. Wide receiver or edge here. Wilson, London, Carl Laftis, Johnson. Those are your options, guys. I feel like at this pick, we've already got our cornerback. Excuse me. I don't think that there's an offensive lineman worth the 10th pick.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really picking between a wide receiver and an edge rusher. And again, I think edge rusher will probably win.
Right.
And again, there are going to be some second round wide receivers, guys, that are very worth the pick at 35. I think you can get your wide receiver and you'll be really, really happy. All right. Daniel Robertson, he says, defense here. We get Amari in free agency. Holy moly, could you imagine? That would be a
nice.
great start to the offseason. Really, really good. Grant Rude says, what does it take for Pitt to move up from 20? We can take a look at that while the poll is marinating. And let's see here. Trade. Let's get Pitt on the phone. And, if we're talking about the 10th pick, what would you be comfortable getting back? Like their second rounder this year and maybe like a future first, a future second? What would you think?
Yeah, I would need a future first for sure, because we're probably going to work off the deal that the Giants had
Right. Okay.
with the Chicago Bears last year. I think the Giants went from 11 to 20, and they got a couple picks that draft, and then they got what turned into the 7th overall pick this year. So definitely a future first, and then
I threw in another pick too. I said first, second, fourth, and a future first. That's probably going to get denied.
Yeah. What if we threw in like a one of our fourths? Do we have multiple fourth round picks?
Well, we do. But I took one of theirs, so that seems kind of like negating.
Yeah. They don't want to.
They don't have a 5th rounder or a 6th rounder. If they had a 5th, I would probably just take that. Well, for now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Would you instead just do 84, 20, 84 in a first and get rid of 52?
I mean, that would be a good haul too. I mean, they might accept that. I don't know.
Because what's 84? 84 has got to be a third, right?
It is a third, yes. So that would give us then 2 thirds. We would have 2 second round picks. We would still have 2 first round picks, 2 fourth round picks, 2 fifth round picks,
and a first next year.
Yeah, right. I guess I'll look at the comments and see what people are saying about that, because we've been talking about it now. Let's see what people are saying.
Also, I don't think Jordan Davis is that old. I'm trying to figure it out, but there's conflicting reports on Google. So
Kev Chada is saying, if we do trade back to 20, Zion, if he's there, you pick him. I would probably agree that would be a hell of a steal. We didn't take Ikem. I would be willing to take him at 20. Owen says, is Trayvon Walker that good? We talked about him earlier in the show. I think there's some legit reasons to think that he is the real deal. Not too many people are talking about it. Oh, I guess people are saying Trayvon Walker here. Vern's saying let's trade. And it is a tie right now. Carl Loftus and Johnson are 29% of the votes. Wilson's 26% of the votes, so it's pretty daggone close. Why don't we go ahead and do that? Since it's such a close vote, first round pick this year, third round pick this year, and a first next year. I don't know. What do you think, James?
Let's do it. Let's just see how it will work.
How do I accept or push that trade through? Oh, we're here. Oh. So why are they not accepting it? I don't get it. Is it... Here, I'll try that again. 3 and the future first. Does that mean they don't accept it because it doesn't allow me to hit the trade button?
Yeah, that might be that they don't want to do it.
Okay.
See what happens if you add like a premium pick. No, it's still not letting you do it.
Yeah, I don't see it as an option. That's kind of weird.
That is weird.
Let me try it one more time. Just maybe. I don't know why that would be though, because we've done this before, and I'm pretty sure we did trade back.
Yeah.
I don't see it as an option. Maybe that just means Pitt's not interested in the pick.
Yeah, that could be true too.
So they're just not interested. Okay, so we are going to stick and pick, and right now Jermaine Johnson is in the lead, and by golly, I like the idea of that. So this may be the worst mock ever. Well, we just started, but we got an edge and we've got a cornerback. I don't know. I think you're just joking around, but I think that's a pretty doggone good one.
Oh,
Stephen
yeah.
Engel saying you have to use the relax mode. Okay, we'll try that next time. It is not the relax mode. It's the realistic mode or whatever. All right.
Okay.
We're going to go Johnson. He is the top. Ooh, now Garrett Wilson's tied. I don't know. What do you think about that? Let's do that. Would you take wide receiver Garrett Wilson here, or would you take the edge? I'm going edge personally.
I'm going edge. I would go Jermaine Johnson and walk out of the top 10 with Sauce Gardner and Jermaine Johnson, and take it from there.
Okay, and Grant Rood's saying you have to get the middle green bar in the middle for the trade to be allowed. So it can't be like heavily favoring us, and it can't be heavily favoring them.
Right.
I tried clicking a bunch of buttons, but doesn't seem. Oh, and Stephen Engel is saying we have it under strict mode. I didn't think I selected that one, but I believe you. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna stick and pick. We're gonna take Jermaine Johnson. It is a tie still, so he is the New York Jets' 10th overall pick. Again, you might hate the idea of going double defense, but those are two really good football players. We would be getting after the quarterback better, and we would be getting more turnovers in the back end as well. I would be so excited. Really, really excited. All right, let's go ahead and let's move on. And we're going to probably go offense here. Let's take a look at who's gone. So 11, Malik Willis to the Commanders. George Karlaftis goes to the Vikings. Garrett Wilson to the Browns. Linderbaum to the Ravens. Devin Lloyd to the Eagles. Jamison Williams to the Eagles. The Eagles, every time we do this, they have an amazing draft. Jordan Davis to the Chargers. That makes a lot of sense. They sucked against the run last year. Kenny Pickett goes 18. Andrew Booth Jr., Kenyon Green, Chris Olave to the Patriots. I think we've seen that before. That really sucks. Trayvon Walker to the Las Vegas Raiders. Trent McDuffie. Zion Johnson went to 24. Drake London to the Bills. Ew.
Oh, no.
Good Lord, that would suck. Nakobe Dean went to the Titans. Traylon Burks to the Bucks. Trevor Penning to the Dolphins. Daxton Hill goes late first round. Khair Elam. Jahan Dotson goes 32. That sucks. I would have liked him at 35. And then here we are at pick 35. Yeah, they took Olave. Exactly. Not ideal. Okay. Kev Chatta says, we need to go O-line. He's getting nervous. Yeah, Stacks went a little early. McBride has not gone. Vern is not happy with our draft picks. Flash Ozzie Gordon from Panama. I agree with you. We got to go skill offensive players. I do have a mock draft coming out on Friday. It's a pre-free agency mock draft, and I do have us taking skill guys in round 2. Let's take a look at what's available, though. And I'm just going to go to the big board here. Quarterback, we're not really looking at that. Raymond of Central Michigan is available. Christian Harris, the linebacker, is available. I don't think we can get away with taking a third defensive player here. So let's maybe go to the wide receiver room. George Pickens is available. That could be interesting, and maybe worthy of the pick as well. I think most people are going to want Trey McBride here. Interior offensive lineman would be a reach. You could maybe sell me on getting an offensive tackle here. And I didn't see his name. Oh, there he is, Linderbaum. Okay. So what is your initial thought here? I like the idea of Pickens and McBride. I think that's a good one. And if we really want to get psycho, we could take Christian Harris.
Wide receiver, you got Pickens down there. Where's Sky Moore on that wide receiver list?
Let's take a peek. And Christian Watson is
available. Christian Watson. There you go.
That's Sky Moore, Christian Watson. So there's a couple of names here. I should have probably scrolled down some.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
Because I really want a wide receiver here. Because I McBride's my number one tight end. I'm just kind of curious what would happen if we didn't pick a tight end at 35 or 38. What are we looking at tight end availability wise at 69? Just kind of curious what would happen. But wide receiver wise there, I don't think it's crazy. Even though Christian Watson right there has a 68 next to his name, I don't think it's all that crazy that he can be that high, drafted that high with the talent that he has. I would put a Christian Watson up there on the board for people to potentially choose from there.
I did, yeah. So now it's Sky Moore, George Pickens, and Christian Watson.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
If you're asking me right now, I'm actually more comfortable with taking a swing on Watson. And if Jahan Dotson had been here, I would have probably been like no brainer. Let's go ahead and take him because he's that route runner separator. Let's see. Cornerback at 4 messes up the whole draft. And I guess what they're saying is it's a little bit more advantageous to take a corner at this pick, maybe, if you're going to do that. I don't know,
but then
man.
Who do you take it for?
Right. I just personally, I see the high ceiling with Gardner. That's the whole idea here. Let's see. Matthew Katz is saying McBride will be there at 38. I would agree.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we can pass on McBride here at 35. I think I'm okay with that. It looks like everybody wants him, and that's okay. We will do that. Emanon wants the tight end first as well. Oh my God. I can't talk about it enough. I want DK. If he's available, I want him bad. Really, really bad. Pickens may be there at 38.
Yep.
I think we're going wide receiver here. And right now, Christian Watson's way ahead of everybody else. And for the sake of our lives and our time, I think I'm going to go ahead and make him the pick if you're okay with that. I think Christian Watson here is pretty good. And I don't think he's I don't think he's a one-trick guy. I think he can do a bunch of different things, even though he's 6'4". I think he is pretty damn talented.
He was a 4.3 guy at the combine, right?
Yeah. He ran a 4.36, I think. So we're going to make him the pick. I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to go ahead and take our wide receiver now. And the likelihood that we could potentially take McBride here at 38 is very high, and we can.
Yeah, we can take any tight end.
Ron, I appreciate you, brother. Let's take a look at our draft so far because I think we've gotten some damn good football players. People don't like it in the chat right now. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. Maybe I'm being sensitive, but a potential lockdown cornerback, a definite bona fide guy at the edge right now. I think Jermaine Johnson certainly is worthy of the 10th overall pick. And then another weapon for Zach Wilson. So I feel good. Yep. I feel pretty good. 38, I don't know if we need to debate it. I think a lot of people are going to be upset if we don't take McBride. And honestly, I don't know. What are your thoughts? You want to see what we could do maybe at 69?
Well, I was just curious just to see what would happen if, I mean, it seems like there's a weird consensus going on with tight ends or the lack of a consensus with tight ends to where, there's obvious. I mean, I don't remember the last time, or I haven't seen every single mock, but how many mock drafts have tight ends going round one? I think it's close to zero.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone really think. I mean, Greg Dulcich made his debut in DJ's top 50, but I think they view this entire tight end class as second round and below there, and just kind of curious, like if we do sign, I don't know, the Max Williams or the Tyler Conklin or someone who can provide that run blocking, and then you throw in a mix of a guy like, I don't know, Isaiah Likely at 69, and then you get some versatility there with, he can be a run blocker, but he's also a damn good weapon in the passing game. And then you have your Max Williams and stuff like that. So just trying to figure out what this thing looks like after.
I do like where your head's at. Like we all would be okay with him taking McBride at 38, but for the sake of a mock, it's kind of fun to play the scenario of, well, okay, if we don't take him at 38, what does the draft look like? Because there are some really interesting names beyond McBride. It's not just a one tight end draft.
Yeah.
So Mr. Ron Mo Lake, he is saying, you show me that big board, mister. And so I'm going to do that right now. We have Kyler Gordon. We're not going to take another corner. Bernard Raymond, offensive tackle from Central Michigan. Christian Harris is still there. Jaquan Brisker is still there. George Pickens is still there. Doubt we would take another wide receiver. Daniel Falele, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. That's another offensive tackle people are talking a lot about. Cameron Thomas is another guy I like a lot, edge position. Lewis Seen is an interesting guy to consider here. We do need a safety. Doesn't have to be here, but there is a drop-off. I think once after the second round, there's going to be a drop-off in the safety room. So if we're playing the draft board, I would say maybe safety here and then go get your tight end at 69.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Eminon is not having it. He's saying, get your tight end, then your safety. But I'm telling you, there is going to be a huge drop-off. Lewis Seen will be gone. Brisker will be gone. And
Petrie's going to be gone too.
Petrie will be gone from, where the hell does he play?
Baylor,
yes. Vern is saying, let's take that offensive lineman.
Yeah.
What's there at safety? Let's go to the safety position. We talked about him, but let's just look at the whole thing. Oh, Kirby Joseph, easy pick. He's my guy.
He would be there.
Yeah, he could be there at 69. That's true. Again, Brisker, Seen, Petrie, Kirby Joseph, Brian Cook, Veron McKinley, excuse me. Those are the guys right there. Let's go ahead. Let's do this. Let's say safety or tight end. I'm not even going to put the names in there. I'm just going to say, do you want a safety? Yeah. Do you want a tight end? We'll sort out the rest. I really like the idea of playing the board here, not necessarily who's our favorite player, and going safety here because you're going to see that drop off. We don't pick for another 31 picks, and those guys are going to go. They will be gone. I would be stunned if they weren't gone. How about them? Jets says we need a safety and a guard. We have a lot of needs. Eminon is saying, okay, if you're going to go safety, go Petrie. Grant Rude's saying, let's go Lewis Seen. That's what I'm saying, Robbie Oak. They are going to go very quickly. Yeah. And tight end is deep. You guys are on point. Kev Shadow says, get that pull out there, mister. And Ron, I'm with you. I love Mr. McBride as well. And I think we all agree there. But Joe Douglas is not going to just look at guys. He's going to also look at the board. And I think, again, if you look at the board, it says maybe wait on your tight end until pick 69 and get your safety first. Jose says Seen. And Mr. Matthew Katz, you're singing a song for me, brother. I love the idea of Kirby Joseph. So if we were going to take a tight end here, I would love Kirby as the safety in pick 69.
Yep.
Let's see here. Scene. Everybody's talking about Scene right now.
Yeah, he's kind of the hot commodity since we're
Safe.
just out of the combine here.
Yeah, I mean it's a little early. The poll doesn't always get everybody to vote, but right now safety is blowing it out of the water. So let's go ahead and let's do it. I'm gonna end the poll, and we'll take our safety. Who do you want? I want Brisker, but I would be okay with Scene. Most people in the chat said Scene.
I would be okay with. I'm okay with either one of them. Brisker, I like. I think I initially had ranked him higher than Scene. I think Scene is a physical and top-notch athlete. Also, I'm kind of wondering about speed there. There's definitely a speed difference between them.
I didn't think there was, but there certainly is, isn't there?
Yeah, no, they're definitely seen as I like categorizing those guys as like the heat-seeking missiles, right? It's once they know where they got to go, they get there pretty dang fast.
Yep. Lewis Scene ran a 4.37 and jumped out of the building and broad jumped across the river. Like he did everything.
Oh yeah. And when he hits you, he's gonna hit you really. Like he is not going to shy away from any kind of contact at any point on the football field. So that's it's an interesting dilemma there. Because if you get your center fielder, you probably can't really go wrong with either of those guys there.
Well, let's go ahead and let's take Lewis Scene just for the sake of it. I maybe Brisker might be rated higher in this, this mock draft simulator, but I'm going to go ahead and let's take Lewis Scene. The Jets took a hard hitter in Jermaine Sherwood, who played safety. So maybe they like the idea of some hard hitters. Emanon says, let's get our next Victor Green. There is a Victor Green interview on the channel, guys. So if you like Victor Green,
we're gonna get McBride at 69.
No, we are not.
Yeah, we are.
Oh my God. I'm taking him. No poll.
What's the chat think about that?
No, yeah. How you like them apples, chat?
Yeah. See, I don't know. I just had it's a weird thing. Like, how are they valuing the? I mean, geez, there is no tight ends going off the board. This can't be.
Yeah. So let's look at our draft. And again, I think this is the best draft of the channel, as far as this offseason goes. Monster draft class right here. Let's take a look at the chat. Scene is a missile. Yes, good job. And Emanon saying we're a little bit lucky. And he's probably right. But maybe not. You never know. There were people saying that, Dulcich would be the number 1 tight end. And there were people saying that the tight ends weren't in the top 50. So maybe this won't happen, but damn. It's a mock draft. Let's have some fun. This is pretty sweet.
Yeah, no, you really I mean, you never know. It's kind of hard to believe that we're at pick 69 and not a single tight end has gone, but they may value some other positions. You never know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so Mr. Grant Rudy's saying taking him in round 2, not a great idea. It's going to be so fascinating to see where he goes and any of these tight ends. It's going to be remarkably fun to watch. All right. We are crushing this draft. We are now into round 4. And we have pick 109. We're going to take a look at the big board here. Kenneth Walker. A couple of running backs here are available. Brandon Smith. We do need a linebacker. That's a pretty good value pick here. Jeremy Ruckert is available. Leo Chenal, is available.
Troy Anderson
is available. This feels like a linebacker pick because there are a hell of a lot here. But there are some really good running backs too. So, for the sake of our lives and our time, I'm just taking a peek here at some of these other positions. There's not a whole lot else. Running back is super rich right now. Calvin Austin, the wide receiver from Memphis, he kind of tore it up at the combine, right?
He did.
So he's available. Maybe he could be that replacement for Barrios. Um, I feel like right now it's got to be between linebacker and running back. Kenneth Walker, Kyron Williams, you were talking about him earlier, Tyler Algier, and then linebacker is loaded right here. Absolutely loaded. How about them Jets is saying linebacker pick all the way right here?
I think Chanel's an interesting pick there at value-wise at 109 for the football player that he is. Yeah.
And it looks like everybody's kind of agreeing here. Linebacker seems to be the best value. Jim threw in the inexplicable Linderbaum, just randomly throwing him in there. Hey, listen, I know there's a lot of Jets fans that want this guy. I don't think it's happening. I do not think it's happening. Frank Pagan is saying let's take the Penn State linebacker here. Okay. So let's do one more poll. Let's do Smith versus Chanel. And I'm going to ask the community. Everybody's agreeing here. Linebacker is the way to go. There's no debate here, it seems. So you've got two options. Mr. Brandon Smith or Leo Chenal. I kind of like Chenal because he's going to offer that potential pass rushing ability as well.
Yeah.
And he is as athletic, if not more. You can wait on a running back. For sure you can. That's why we are going to wait on a running back. And we have another 4th round pick to play with too, and 2 5ths. Honestly, would like Algier get his BYU running back. Dude, Michael, I love Algier. He ran a 4.6. I could care less. He's one of those guys that seems to play faster than that 40 time. And he is very physical, very hard to tackle. Linebacker needs to be able to smell out a screen. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if we could get someone like Leo here, or whoever the linebacker pick is at 109. We pick again at 115. Is a Cole Strange going to be there at 115 in this situation here, to where we address the linebacker, and then Cole Strange is definitely going to be there at 115. Maybe that may not happen in real life, but right now real life is this mock draft. So.
Well, and again, like I remember who is the linebacker from Alabama? Dylan Moses. He was a guy I really was really high on. Didn't he go like undrafted or something insane?
Yeah, no, he wasn't drafted. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you never know like what's gonna happen. So like a guy that's projected as a 4th round pick, there's no guarantees. So
no, none.
I'm gonna go ahead and say, Chanel's winning this right now. And I think, again, this is a really, really good class. And I like
it is.
And again, I like the upside with the pass rushing ability that Chenal brings.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick peek here.
Yeah, I had the numbers for him. The PFF numbers.
Brandon Smith is still there.
What the heck? Where's that piece of paper?
So we'll go ahead and we'll appease the offensive line people here. I think there's gonna be a frenzy here if we don't go O-line at 115. Let's go ahead and let's just take Mr. Cole Strange. We heard really good things about him from Will Parkinson. Sorry, names are challenging for me. We'll take Cole Strange here. And then we'll go ahead and we'll maybe go ahead and talk about our 5th rounder as far as running back, or maybe another linebacker, maybe another tight end. We could double dip at tight end. And we will see, because this is a really, really fun draft. By the way, guys, 60 strong here, and we've been streaming for 2.5 hours. Cannot thank you guys enough for hanging out with us tonight. This is easily the strongest and longest stream that we've done. So really, really appreciate all of your support. I am not going to go pick by pick here, but I am going to go ahead and take a look at the big board as far as positions. The running backs are still there. Wide receivers, I'm not seeing any names that I'm real familiar with here. Tyquan Thornton blew it up, right? Is he that guy at Baylor that just destroyed?
Yeah, he was like a 4.26, I think, or 4.23 or
Whew,
something like that. Yeah,
crazy.
something crazy.
Ooh, Jeremy Ruckert is there. That's intriguing. Charlie Kohler, Greg Dulcich, Jelani Woods. We heard about Asamoah, the linebacker from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Edge is dried up.
Yeah.
Don't see a lot there interior wise for we took our offensive lineman. I don't know if we're going to go offensive line again. So running back or tight end or linebacker. Let's take a
Running
look.
back, tight end, or linebacker.
Yeah, I feel like those are the best. I'll go one more time. I'll go through it. So running back is super rich. There, Zamir White is another name that could be, a guy that a lot of people like. I think they have James Cook way too high here in this ranking, 83. I don't know if I don't think he's that highly regarded.
I think he's like a Swiss Army type of guy. He's like a passing game.
Third down back.
I think so. Anyway. Yeah.
So Jeremy Ruckert, Charlie Kohler, the tight end position is very rich there. There's really good value. Linebacker, there's I like Asamoah as well. So let me go to the chat here. Let's take a peek here what you guys are saying. Why take an offensive lineman? We're sure we're getting one in free agency. Matthew Katz, you are welcome here anytime because you seem to think the same way that I do. You gotta draft offensive line though in every draft, even if it's the late rounds. You just have to draft them for development and for depth. He says we don't need O-line. There are a lot of people that disagree. Let's see. It's easy because you guys rock. Appreciate that, Blunted Vegas. Big board. We ran through that. Very well run mock. Like the voting option. Appreciate that, guys. Big Daddy, he says, let's go ahead and let's get Ruckert. I am very much in favor of potentially double dipping with this class. Jelani Woods is getting some love. Bo Melton, the wide receiver from Rutgers.
Yeah.
Daryl's saying, let's take Ruckert. Emanon saying double dip. Frank is saying Ruckert. Jaleel is saying Ruckert. No question. Ruckert is still there. Wow. Let's take Ruckert. It's a clear. Yeah, everybody's saying Ruckert. Okay. Thank you guys for putting that in the chat. That does make things really easy when you just clearly scream a guy's name. We're taking Jeremy Ruckert. I love this draft. I love this draft. This is a great class. Look at these picks. Look at this draft.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Ruckert and McBride, a safety, a linebacker that can pass rush with athleticism, an interior offensive lineman to develop, a hard-hitting safety, a wide receiver that can play make, edge, corner. I mean, again, dynamite.
And based on this mock too, they're kind of telling us we've hit all those needs that they think we have there, which it's kind of hard to see what exactly are. It looks like we're missing the fourth one, whatever the fourth one is.
Let me go.
No, you were right. You were right on top of it, John.
Oh, this thing right here?
Yeah, it looks like those are our what they think our needs are.
I see. Offensive tackle.
See, I'm not sure about that one being the fourth need, if I'm being honest.
Yes, Grant Reed, we have 2 picks left. We have the 2 5th rounders, I'm pretty sure. Oh, no. Wait a minute. Hold on. No, we have 1 pick left. We have our 162. And yes, I feel like a running back at this spot is a absolute no-brainer. You've got to get a guy that will complement Michael Carter. I think going into next season, if you don't have somebody that can spell him, and again, we're not talking about Algier being the running back 1 in this offense. We're talking about Algier being a guy that can come in short yardage situations and who can also catch the football. That's why I love Algier so much. He is not one-dimensional. He is powerful, but he is not one-dimensional. Get your bruiser. Running back to back up Carter, Algier. We have our guard, don't we? Cole Strange. We took him, right?
Yeah, we got Elijah Vera Tucker as well.
Yeah. Mr. Tucker. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to end this. This was just so much fun tonight, guys, and it went really long, but it was so worth it. We are going to end the draft here with Tyler Algier being our final draft pick. And here's the crazy thing. He might actually end up being there because of that 4-6.
I don't think that's...
He could be there. So there's the draft, guys. Ahmad Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, Christian Watson, Lewis Seen, Trey McBride, Leo Chenal, Cole Strange, Jeremy Ruckert, and Tyler Algier. This is a walk-off home run.
Class.
This is a beastly draft. Oh, James, thank you so much for hanging tough with me. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Chat, you were absolutely phenomenal tonight. Great questions for Will. Great questions for James and I. I don't know how you're feeling about next week, James, but I'm thinking just a one-on-one next week. We'll do, less. We'll do no guest and maybe get back to films if you'd like to do that.
Cool.
And if not, no worries. Guys, if you don't mind, hit that like button on your way out. Really, really appreciate this, guys. We're close to 100 likes, which we've never gotten on a live stream. I hope everybody enjoyed the live stream tonight. Hope you all have an awesome night. Go Jets. And we will see you guys next time. Word from my daughter. Peace out, guys. Have a great night. Sorry.
J-E